Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The January 22nd, 2026 meeting of the Medford Planning Commission will now come to order. Kaylee, can we have a roll call, please?
Rachel Bennett.
Here.
Larry Busco.
Here.
David Culbertson.
Here.
Mark McKechnie.
Here.
EJ McManus.
Here.
Jared Pulver.
Here.
Jeff Thomas. James Wallen.
Here.
Roll has been taken.
Thank you, and we have a quorum. Tonight's agenda is available on the city's website for those watching from home. The order of business this evening will consist of consent calendar and written communications, minutes, public hearings, and reports. Item 20 is the consent calendar and written communications. Have commissioners reviewed the consent calendar and written communications, and if so, are there any questions? Seeing none, can we have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to adopt the consent calendar and written communications as submitted.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Rachel Bennett.
Yes.
Larry Busco.
Yes.
David Culbertson.
Yes.
EJ McManus.
Yes.
Jared Pulver.
Yes.
Jim Wallen.
Yes.
Mark McKechnie.
Yes.
We have 7 yeses.
Thank you. The motion passes. Item 30 is minutes. Have commissioners reviewed the minutes from the Planning Commission meeting of January 8th, 2026? And if so, are there any additions or corrections to be noted? Okay, seeing none, the minutes will stand as submitted. Item 40 is oral requests and communications from the audience. This is an opportunity for members of the audience to address the commission on matters that are not on tonight's agenda. If you wish to speak, please come forward to the podium, sign in, and tell us your name and your concern. Okay, seeing no one, we will move on to item 50. Tonight's public hearing, items 50.1, 50.2, and 50.4 will be conducted as quasi-judicial hearings. Item 50.3 will be conducted as a legislative hearing. If you plan to testify tonight, please listen carefully to the following prepared statement regarding the procedural rules that govern these hearings. The statement will be read by Mr. Eric Mitten, City Attorney.
Thank you, Chair. Evan here, I'm going to explain the rules that govern these hearings. Before the hearing begins, City staff will give a report. The report will list the criteria that governs the City's decision. After the staff report, the hearing will be open for other speakers. The applicant will speak first and may ask for rebuttal time. Following the applicant, any other interested person will be allowed to speak. Any testimony, argument, or evidence you give must relate to the criteria listed in the staff report or other criteria in the comprehensive plan or land use regulations that you believe apply to the decision. If you fail to raise an issue or do not give the Commission sufficient information so that the Commission and any party can respond, you will not be able to appeal that issue to Land Use Board of Appeals. If you do not raise constitutional or other issues about any proposed condition with specificity so that the Commission can respond to that issue, you will not be able to bring in court action for damages. And finally, before the hearing is closed, anyone who needs more time to present evidence must ask for more time. If you ask, the hearing will be continued or the record will be kept open, and you'll have at least 7 days to present additional written evidence. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. In order to proceed through this evening's agenda in a timely manner, except at the Commission's request, applicants giving testimony will be given 10 minutes to present their application. Individuals who have comments about these applications will be given 3 minutes to speak, or 5 minutes if they are representing a group or organization. And 5 minutes will be given to the applicant for rebuttal. Please note that due to the large number of attendees intending to testify, we will have our recording secretary call 5 people at a time to come to the podium to speak. We will have attendees who are joining us via Zoom go first. And when testifying, please speak clearly and provide your name and address. And then, did you have something else you wanted to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, obviously we've got a lot of folks here to testify. Some folks may have very similar things to say to other folks. If you want to Preserve your ability to testify on any appeal. It is important that you testify either in writing or orally, but you don't have to use your full 3 minutes. If you come up and speak and you say you agree with the last 3 speakers, that still preserves your ability to testify on appeal. So there's nothing wrong if you want to come up and testify and state agreement with the prior speaker instead of restating all those points. It's your call. You can use your 3 minutes how you like.
Thank you. Okay, moving on here. Item 50.1, LDS 25-057 and ZC 25-058. Consideration of a request for tentative plat approval for a 72-lot residential subdivision consisting of single-family, duplex, triplex, and cottage-style units. The site consists of 2 parcels totaling approximately 15.007 acres and is currently zoned SFR 4 and MFR 20. The SFR 4 zoned area is proposed to be rezoned to SFR 6. The site is located south of East McAndrews Road, west of Springbrook Road, and immediately east of North Berkeley Way. The applicant is Berkeley LLC. The planner is Stefan Rohnfeld. Staff has requested to continue this item to the February 26, 2026 Planning Commission meeting. If there is anyone in the audience that has come to testify on this agenda item tonight and cannot make the February 26th meeting, please come forward and the Planning Commission will hear your testimony at this time. Please keep in mind, however, that your questions may be answered at the February 26, 2026 meeting, and there will be no decisions made this evening on this agenda item. With that said, is there anybody that wishes to come forward to speak on this item? Okay, seeing none, can we have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to continue LDS-25-057, ZC-25-058, and E-25-059 to the February 26, 2026 Planning Commission meeting.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Kaylee, can we have a roll call, please?
Jim Wallen,
Yes.
E.J. McManus,
Yes.
Larry Busco,
Yes.
David Culbertson,
Yes.
Rachel Bennett,
Yes.
Jared Pulver,
Yes.
Mark McKechnie.
Yes.
We have 7 yeses.
Thank you. Motion passes. Agenda item 50.2, LDS 25-392. Consideration of a request for tentative plat approval for the Lozier Loop subdivision, a 6-lot residential subdivision on approximately 1 acre, zoned SFR 10. The subject site is located on the west side of Lozier Lane at the intersection of Lozier Court. The applicant is Rogue Valley Affordable Homes, Inc. The agent is Needhammer Surveying, Inc. The planner is Stefan Rohnfeld. The applicant has requested to continue this item to the February 26, 2026 Planning Commission meeting. So again, if there's anyone in the audience that has come to testify on this agenda item and will not be able to make the February 26, 2026 Planning Commission meeting, please come forward and the Planning Commission will hear your testimony at this time. Please keep in mind, however, that your questions may be answered at the February meeting. There will not be any decisions made this evening on this agenda item. Okay, with that said, is there anyone that wishes to come forward and speak on this agenda item? Okay, seeing none, may we have a motion to continue?
Mr. Chair, I move to continue LDS-25-392 to the February 26, 2026 Planning Commission meeting.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All right, seeing none, Kaylee, can we have a roll call, please?
David Culbertson,
Yes.
Rachel Bennett,
Yes.
Jared Pulver,
Yes.
Jim Wallen,
Yes.
Larry Busco,
Yes.
E.J. McManus,
Yes.
Mark McKechnie.
Yes.
We have 7 yeses.
Thank you. That motion passes. Okay, agenda item 50.3, UP 25-406, a legislative amendment to revise the adopted urbanization plan for Planning Unit MD3C, Autumn Hills, in the neighborhood element of the comprehensive plan for 6 tax lots totaling approximately 143.35 acres. Bounded by McLaughlin Drive on the west, North Foothill Road on the east, and the future alignment of Owen Drive on the north. The purpose of the amendment is to adjust the open space overlay within the planning area to align with updated survey, wetlands delineation, and development planning. The proposed GLUP urbanization plan amendments are limited to land owned by the applicants. The applicant is Now Forever Trust et al. The agent is CSA Planning Limited, an AKS company, and the planner is Dustin Sievers. Okay. Excuse me. Don't we usually have to ask for all that conflict of interest stuff?
We do. If it's missing from the agenda, we should just go ahead and
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. All right. Excuse me there. Okay. Does any commissioner have a conflict of interest or ex parte contact to disclose regarding this application? Okay. Seeing none. Does anyone in attendance wish to question the commission as to conflicts of interest or ex parte contacts? All right, seeing none now, can we have we have a stand-in here for Dustin.
I was about to make a joke about my hairline, but I'm obviously not Dustin Sievers, so. I did not.
We'll remember that for the next time that Dustin shows up.
So I'm here to give you a quick presentation on the UP 25-406, the modification to the urbanization plan for MD3C. And this doesn't work per usual, so I move to the mouse. As always, we start with the approval criteria for this type 4 legislative action. We look at the neighborhood element in the comprehensive plan. We're looking at section 5, 6, and 9, and that has all been addressed by the applicant in detail in the staff reports. I will not go over that at this point. So the approval authority, it's a type 4 legislative amendment. The Planning Commission tonight will make a recommendation to City Council, and then City Council will make a final decision on this comp plan amendment. We are in the northeast of Medford between McLaughlin Drive and North Foothill Road. You can kind of marked on the right side is the area, and then more detail to the left side here. You should all be very familiar with this project. It's about the 7th or 8th time that this area is in front of you. The last time was for a zone change for about 33 acres, and I believe that was for phases 3 through 11 for Autumn Hills. So if you look at what's out there right now, phases 1 and 2 have been fully or almost fully developed by now. Like I said, phases 3 through 11 have tentative approval for development. And then there's one more existing residence to the very east of the development. So the proposal is to make a minor amendment to the club map, and that is based on updated surveys that the applicant or the developer received in the meantime. There's some new wetland delineations, and then the overall development planning slightly changed too. So all adjustments that are proposed tonight are within the land owned by the applicants. If you can take a look at the existing club map to the left, the proposed changes to the right. We have 2 small expansion to the already proposed commercial areas in that development. It's going up from 21.6 to 23.6 acres. We have an addition of a second urban high-density residential club map designation. So the high density increases from 10.3 to 11.7 acres. Then we have, we're moving the urban medium density designation, so that allows for MFR 15 development from the southeast to the center north. And it's decreasing from 10.8 acres to 6.8 acres. The urban residential areas are split into 3 separate future SFR 10 zoning districts highlighted here. And then everything that isn't highlighted will either be zoned SFR 4 or SFR 6 in the future. There's also some slight adjustments to the open space. So when we first designated open space in the comprehensive plan map, the wetlands weren't super delineated at that time, and there was also a school opportunity site at the southwest of the site. So the school has since declined that option, so that goes away. And with the wetland delineation, we have a clearer idea of where the wetlands actually are, so that changes the proposed location of the open space. Overall, we're still at almost 28 acres for open space. 25 acres were required with the original application, so we're good on that end. For the circulation plan, also a couple small additions. So we're not asking for additional connections in the southwest corner, and that is due to the existing development outside of the MB3 area. And then, as you can see, this big void in the center has to do with the now delineated wetland, so there's not going to be any east-west connections there in the center. The residential density overall, the urbanization plan was asking for a minimum of 733 units, and even with those slight reductions that we have in the UM designations, we're still hoping to get over 820 units into that area. So minimum is met for residential density. So with that, staff's conclusion is that the applicant's findings of fact, conclusion, attachment addressed each of the criteria in detail, and the commission can find that the amended Autumn Hills Urbanization Plan for MD3C meets the plan requirements and criteria for incorporation into the neighborhood element of the comprehensive plan, and it's therefore our recommended action for a favorable recommendation to City Council for approval of UP 25406, and that's that should be staff report. Oh, it does say staff report dated January 15 this year, including exhibits A through X, and the applicant stipulations in exhibit A. If you have any questions,
Thank
I
you,
might
Stefan.
likely defer them to the applicant.
Any questions of staff? Okay, with that, we will open the public hearing and ask the applicant to come forward and talk about the project.
Good evening, Commissioners. For the record, Jay Harlan with CSA Planning in Medford. Here this evening representing the property owners requesting the changes to the urbanization plan. I think Stefan did a good job, explaining the basics. Essentially, when the UGB was adopted, the city did what I would call a desktop review of the wetlands, and they had somebody sort of looking at aerial photos and more or less guessing, right? And they actually ended up pretty good, like acreage-wise, but they're actually not where people thought they were. And so then, then the UGB line moved, and then now you're talking actual development. You got to send the wetlands people out there. And it turned out where the wetlands actually were was quite a bit to the west from what was originally assumed, and so, or what was planned. So the initial urbanization plan then had a more open space to the east. We're shifting it to the west. And so that's the big change, and then kind of the smaller changes are, one is the owners wanted to add a transition area of SFR 10 from the single family to SFR 10 to then to the multifamily, which seems like a pretty good idea. And then the other thing is with the open space moving and then lost a little bit of that UH. And then the other thing is the UM that was originally medium density thought about up on foothills. I mean, ultimately, as Bev got into detailed design, it's kind of steep and it's in some places fairly steep, and the smaller medium density is actually one of the harder things to do on slope. It's even harder than bigger buildings a lot of times, because it's like the lots are so narrow, right? They can be 20 feet or 30 feet or something, so you end up with a bunch of retaining walls every so often. So then it was like, well, with the open space being more in the center, it makes sense to let's move the medium density closer to the open space. And kind of one of the neat things of the way it worked out, I guess if it's not your, if you weren't the one buying the land, but the way it worked out is the wetlands kind of go in oval, right, of different areas. And then the area in the middle, there's essentially not really a way to physically get to for development, or not conveniently. And so what's contemplated there, and we're continuing to work with the Parks Department, is to have an actual park in that area. So you'd have a flat park area that's closer to the medium and high density and the commercial in the center of the area, and then a sort of developed or lightly developed park in the middle with the wetlands around. So that's the reason for the request, and we would request the Planning Commission recommend approval to the council, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jay. Any questions of the applicant? Okay, not seeing any.
Thank you.
All right. So is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak regarding this application? Okay, not seeing anybody. Any additional comments by planning? Legal have anything to add?
Nothing on this one.
Engineering? Nope. Okay, then we will close the public hearing. And do we have a motion for consideration?
Mr. Chair, based on the findings and conclusions that all applicable criteria are satisfied or not applicable, forward a favorable recommendation for approval of UP-25-406 to the City Council per the staff report dated January 15th, 2026, including Exhibits A through X, and the applicant's stipulations as outlined in Exhibit A.
Thank you. Do we have a second for this? Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on this agenda item? Okay, seeing none, Kaylee, can we have a roll call, please?
Rachel Bennett,
Yes.
Jared Pulver,
Yes.
EJ McManus,
Yes.
Jim Wallen,
Yes.
David Culbertson,
Yes.
Larry Busco,
Yes.
Mark McKechnie.
Yes.
We have 7 yeses.
Thank you. Motion passes. Okay, moving on to agenda item 50.4, PUD 25-292, consideration of a request for a revision to the Mountaintop Village area of Vista Point planned unit development. The revision includes changing the approved 132 townhouse-style units to 199 apartment units in 11 buildings on approximately 25.05 acres, zoned SFR4/PD, single-family residential planned unit development overlay. Mountaintop Village is generally located north of Vista Point Drive, northeast of Park Ridge Drive, and west of Bordeaux Avenue at the termini of Whitney Terrace, Evening Ridge Terrace, and Deer Ridge Drive. The applicant is Pacific Rental Properties, LLC. The agent is CSA Planning Limited. The planners are Kelly Aiken and Kagan Benson. Does any commissioner have a conflict of interest or ex parte contact to disclose regarding this application?
Mr. Chair, the applicant is a client of my law firm, so I will be recusing myself.
Thank you.
So I've been told I'm supposed to disclose this, so I did drive up to near the property this morning. I didn't trespass or anything, but I did look at it just to get a lay of the land and what have you, so.
Okay, thank you. Yes,
I did have a site visit yesterday. Again, did not trespass, but reviewed the area.
thank you. And as everybody has probably seen from the documentation in this, my firm did the previous plan. We were paid for that plan, and I have had no contact with either the applicant or his agent or anyone else having to do with this application. And what I know about it is what I read in the newspaper, as they say. Okay, does anyone in attendance wish to question the commission as to conflicts of interest or ex parte contacts? Okay, seeing nothing. Kelly, can we have a staff report, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and good evening, Commissioners. I am Kelly Aiken with your Planning Department, and I have a not very brief presentation for you this evening on the Mountaintop Village at Vista Point PUD revision. I wanted to note we have several staff members in-house. We have a representative from Fire and from Public Works in-house. They are subject matters, and I will absolutely defer to them. Oh, boy. Oh, there we go. Okay. So we did have a quite a few new exhibits that were submitted. We had a whole bunch of new written comments from neighbors and the public. We batched them up and sent them to you and to the applicant daily. And then they're on, we did post them to the web. It's kind of obscure, but they are out for the public to view as well. I think everybody knows there was a Microsoft issue today, so we weren't able to receive emails from about 11 to about 3:30 or 4. So one of the correspondences that we received today did request that the record remain open. So we'll close the hearing at the end of tonight and then leave the hearing or the record open for additional correspondence. So those, whatever was stopped by Microsoft today will still be added to the record, and we'll forward those along to you. Let's see. Many of the bits of correspondence, or the correspondence that was received, were form letters. And so the issues generally are traffic, compatibility with the existing development patterns, and then fire safety. There are other issues as well, but those are the top 3. As always, we start off with the approval authority and the criteria. PUD revision is a type 3 quasi-judicial decision. The Planning Commission is the approving authority under the code. The approval criteria for PUD revisions are found in Land Development Code section 10.198, and it points us over to the approval criteria for the preliminary plan in section 10.190. Staff did review the application against those approval criteria and determined that the criteria are either not applicable or satisfied in this case. This is a really interesting project, so I wanted to share just a little bit of history. Some of this is outside what I had previously submitted, but the city acquired 160 acres in northeast Medford that is now Vista Point. In 1993, the city entered into an agreement with Noel Moore for the property in exchange for the construction of East McAndrews Road from the Oregon Hills subdivision, which is on the bottom right part of your of the screen, up to Foothill. So you can see the interchange on the top left part of the screen, the interchange at Foothill and McAndrews. So that's how that was constructed. It wasn't a city project, it was a developer project. Kind of an interesting bit of history. And this particular aerial photo was the city's taken in 2002. Are you serious? Okay. As part of the agreement, Mr. Moore was required to produce a master plan for the property. That master plan was approved by the Planning Commission back in 2001. In 2003, the applicant submitted a proposal for the Vista Point PUD, which was approved by the Planning Commission also in 2003, and then that decision was upheld by City Council on appeal. Vista Point has 4 neighborhood areas. Forest Ridge is the bulk of the project. It has about 240 lots. Innsbrook Ridge is on the easterly part of Vista Point. It has 60 oversized lots, largely due to the topography in the area. It's pretty steep over there. Part of the street network in Innsbrook Ridge is private because of those slopes. West Ridge Village is on both sides of McAndrews. So West Ridge Village has both residential and some commercial features. It was also approved to include a congregate care facility down in this area that has not yet, of course, been constructed. In 2010, the Planning Commission approved a revision to West Ridge Village that divided it a little more clearly into commercial and residential components. So the residential is called East Ridge Village and is pretty close to being fully developed at this point. And finally, we have Mountaintop Village, which is all the way at the north end. That's what we're talking about this evening. It was initially approved with 132 units and 11 three-story buildings with 41 single-family lots around the perimeter. And you can kind of see the dots around the edges. Those represent where the single-family lots were initially approved. As a side note, the city did retain the acreage for the Oregon Hills Park and the stormwater facility. That was all part of that initial 160 acres. So a couple things on this one. So the property is really tall, and in order for the maps to be any kind of legible, I have north oriented either up or to the left. So I've tried to include a north arrow for everybody so you can figure out what the heck I'm talking about. In 2017, Planning Commission approved a revision to the Mountaintop Village neighborhood of Vista Point. This is the approved 2017 plan. The proposal before the commission tonight is to amend this plan. So I'll get into more details about the differences between 2003, 2017, and what's on the plate for today. I also want to talk a little bit about procedures. Oregon land use is very much based in law, so it's important that we all kind of understand the processes that we're bound by, what the commission's responsibilities are, and what your authority is when it comes to criteria-based decisions. First, as I mentioned before, this is a type 3 quasi-judicial decision. In quasi-judicial decisions, the commission sits as a judge. Your job is to evaluate the proposal against the approval criteria that I mentioned earlier. It is definitely not an easy job. Not all the information that you receive is relevant to the approval criteria. So your job then is to kind of tease out the facts that are relevant to those approval criteria and then make a determination based on that fact set. The code tells us how to process type 3 applications. Type 3s require public hearing, which is what we're here doing this evening. They require mailed notice to property owners and that signs be posted noticing the hearing. Land use decisions, I think this is really important. Land use decisions are binding. They're binding under both our own local code and statutory rules. That means that the 2003 Vista Point PUD applies to the project as a whole unless it's been amended. So in this case, we have the initial 2003 decision for Mountaintop was amended in 2017. So that's what we're looking at tonight, again, is that 2017 decision. But both property owners and the city were all bound by those land use decisions. We can't just ignore them. They don't go away unless they're made to go away or amended. So what in the world is a PUD anyways? PUDs are an area or a master plan. The PUD ordinance in Medford has tools that allow flexibility in design and uses that result in a more creative development, like allowing commercial uses in residential areas or allowing mixed housing types. PUDs are a two-step process. There's a preliminary plan that is a concept plan. So that's exactly what the Vista Point PUD was. It's a concept plan. So if we think about Vista Point specifically, it has the layout of streets and lots, the proposed uses that aren't allowed in the residential zones. The office uses on McAndrews are not permitted outright in the zone. That's one of the vehicles of the PUD. That's how they got there. PUDs do allow all housing types. But so back to the Vista Point PUD, that is the master plan. So before a final plan can be approved, so this is the second step of the process, something has to happen. You typically can't actually build or develop anything from the PUD plan itself. We have to have another land use action. So in Vista Point is a good example. There were subdivisions that followed. So those went through a similar type 3 process. There were public hearings, and the same for the commercial developments that have happened there. Those went through a site plan review process. And so the final PUD plan, what that does is it ensures consistency with the requirements of the preliminary plan. Something else that's important is that PUDs don't actually expire. The initial preliminary PUD plan approval has a 3-year lifespan. Once a final PUD plan has been approved, that the preliminary plan cannot expire. It can be revised. An applicant can request to have it terminated, or the Planning Commission can terminate it on its own motion in certain very specific and narrow conditions. And finally, there is a procedure to revise PUDs. We went over those criteria earlier. The revision section tells us again to use the same procedures to modify a PUD as were used to establish that preliminary plan, which is exactly what we're doing here this evening. So now that we got all that mumbo jumbo out of the way, let's talk about the project. So Mountaintop Village, it's a 25.5 acre or so piece of land. We're in northeast Medford. On this map, the green lines on the top of the map are the urban growth boundary. So properties to the south and west are in the UGB. Properties north and east are outside the UGB. Pacific Property owns the property or I'm sorry, Pacific Power rather owns the property to the northwest, and the city recently acquired the property adjacent to the north, outside the UGB. It's part of the part of a parks plan, and I'll talk about that in just a moment. To the east of Mountaintop is the Ridge of the Highlands PUD that was approved in 1998. To the west and south are, of course, parts of Forest Ridge. The general land use plan map designation is urban residential, and the zoning is SFR4, and then it has that plan development overlay. That overlay lets staff and everybody know that there is another layer of administration that's required for this area. And again, like I mentioned, that PUD is an area plan, and it is long-lasting. So the proposal before you this evening is to amend the preliminary plan for Mountaintop that was approved in 2017. So I want to mention that in 2017, the Planning Commission also approved a tentative plat. That plat did expire, but as I mentioned, the PUD did not expire. So this is what we're amending this evening. There is no land division proposed this evening. So on this proposed plan, we have 11 structures containing 199 dwelling units. On the bottom of the screen, those lots in yellow, those were platted as part of Mountaintop, the 2017 decision. Those 6 lots were identified for single families. The very northernmost lot, Lot 1, is encumbered with the Pacific Power lines, so it won't be constructed on. The other 5 lots have been built with duplexes per the middle housing rules that the state passed. Let's see. Both the 2003 and 2017 PUDs allowed a total of 173 units in Mountaintop. They are in single-family detached and multi-family attached forms. The revision tonight is to go from the 132 townhouse-style units and 41 single-family lots approved in 2017 to, as I mentioned, the 199 units and 11 buildings and the 5 existing duplex lots, or units rather, for a total of 209 dwelling units. So except for the developed lots shown in yellow, all the single-family lots have been removed from the proposal. Removing those single-family lots doubles the open space from about 8 acres to about 16. Now, the applicant did request 3 modifications to code standards. First is to allow the driveways to function as private streets. This is not a new request. Both the 2003 and 2017 versions included private streets. The second modification is for sidewalks. Most of the buildings are connected by sidewalks, but where they are not, the applicant proposes posting 15-mile-per-hour speed and then the use of sharrows. Finally, the applicant requests modification to the setback standards where buildings must be located between parking areas and the street. This allows the parking area to be located between the private streets that are functioning as driveways. Staff does not object to those proposed modifications. So on screen, we have the approved 2017 plan on the left and the current proposals on the right. In yellow, as I mentioned, are the single-family lots. In 2017, the 132 multifamily units were proposed in 3- and 4-unit buildings constructed in a 2-story townhouse style. Each building was on its own lot. The units were rental and could not be sold as they were approved. So the 11 buildings currently proposed are very similar to the 2003 approval. 11 buildings with 132 units in 2003, and now 199 units in 11 buildings. So overall, the 209 unit total represents a 36 unit increase over those prior decisions. Mr. Benton was kind enough to put together this table that really shows the differences between the original 2003 decision, the 2017 decision, and then the current proposal. So as I mentioned, the current proposal really is very similar to the original decision. Talk a little bit about density. Vista Point PUD as a whole had a density range of 361 to 577 dwelling units. The 2003 decision allowed a 13.8% density bonus, which is one of the modifications permissible under the PUD ordinance. So the maximum number of units that were allowed was 657. Accounting now indicates 581 approved units for all of Vista Point. With the additional 36 units proposed, we're still within that approved density range for Vista Point. I also wanted to point out that the 2003 plan transferred some of the density from Vista Point as a whole up to Mountaintop. If we do a calculation based on just the gross area of the 25 acres of Vista Point, or excuse me, of Mountaintop itself, it's about 101 units, but the original PUD allowed 173 units, which equals about 7 units to the gross acre. The proposed 209 units equals about 8 units per gross acre. And in Medford, the density range for the urban residential general land use plan map designation is between 2.5 and 10 units per gross acre. So the 8 units proposed are within what's permissible in the GLEP designation. Talk a little bit about traffic. In 2017, staff analyzed the question of whether additional traffic analysis was required from the change from the 132 condominium units to the 132 townhouse style multifamily units. After analyzing the difference in trip generation between the housing types, staff concluded that no additional analysis was required, and in rendering its approval, the Planning Commission concurred. For the current application, the applicant did provide a trip accounting prepared by Sandow Engineering. That analysis demonstrates that the proposed housing type will generate an increase of 28 daily trips using the 11th edition of the ITE manual. On screen is a comparison prepared by our own transportation manager using the current edition, which is the 12th edition of the ITE manual. The ITE has different trip generation rates based on the different housing types. This analysis concurs with the Sandow analysis. Overall trips are really comparable. So moving from the townhouse style units to the multifamily style units is really kind of a negligible change in traffic. Actually, the 12th edition shows a decrease. Let me explain what this is. So the number of units, ADT is average daily trips, and then PM peak hour trips. So that's the 6 o'clock hour, 5 to 6? 5 to 6 p.m. So that's what those numbers are. Okay, moving on to access. We have received a number of comments about access to the site. The street network and the 3 access points to Mountaintop were established with the 2003 PUD. The applicant is proposing that the access at Evening Ridge, which is this one, be made emergency access rather than open access. They're citing topography as the reasoning behind that decision. So the main access pattern will be from Deer Ridge at the southeasterly corner and extending through the site to Bordeaux. And that's what the red line represents. The northernmost access was also shown on the plan as emergency, but I believe the applicant agreed that this should remain as an open access and not emergency only. So we'll ask Mr. Harlan to speak to that particular issue. The applicant did provide a map showing current and future emergency access routes. The lines in yellow show the current routes. The red lines show future planned routes. Fire has provided comments with specific access requirements, including provisions for aerial apparatus, hydrant locations, and fire sprinklers for those structures. Fire also recommends constructing buildings to the IHBS wildfire prepared standards. Another comment was that any access gates must be approved, and they may be designed to restrict entry, but they must allow immediate evacuation of residents at all times without intervention. Specifically, no padlocks are allowed. And Fire Marshal Farrington is in chambers with us this evening and can answer questions regarding fire. Pedestrian paths were an important feature in both the 2003 and 2017 plans. The applicant proposes to construct pedestrian pathways on the east and west sides of the site, as shown here in red. They extend near the northerly property line and will double as a fire break. So this little detail shows a 6-foot wide walking path in the 15-foot fire break. The proposed locations, as I mentioned, were shown in red. Let's talk a little bit about the Parks Plan. So in December of 2024, the City Council adopted the Parks and Recreation Strategic Plan. This plan identifies 2 shared use paths in Mountaintop Village. So I have that starred. That's where we are on the map. So there is one that runs near the northerly property line, and the other one runs north-south, approximating up Deer Ridge up to the north, and eventually all paths lead up to Prescott Park. In an effort to implement the strategic plan, the Parks Department recently acquired the property adjacent to the north, as I had mentioned. So they've acquired these properties to accommodate that connection to Prescott Park. Medford Parks did submit conditions of approval consistent with that strategic plan. The memo requires a 10-foot path on the east side of the property between Vista Point Drive and the northerly property line, and they specified some slope limitations. And then they also require a public access easement or dedication of the path that's not less than 20 feet in width. So we did include a condition of approval regarding those things, and I note that the applicant needs to work with Parks to establish a northern terminus of that pathway. Finally, to the architecture. The applicant, as I mentioned, is proposing 199 units and 11 buildings. 9 of those buildings are 3 stories tall, 7 of them have garages, and then 2 of the buildings are 2-story. We did review the application against the multifamily design standards and determined that all those standards are satisfied with the exception of the prohibition of parking between the building and the street. As I mentioned, the applicant did request a modification to that standard. A review of the bulk standards for setbacks, lot coverage, and building height indicate that the proposal does meet those standards. I also wanted to note that the applicant requested that the Planning Commission approve the architecture as the code allows. Since there are now clear and objective standards for housing and the proposal meets those standards, staff does agree with that request. So finally, staff's conclusion would be to recommend approval. I did mention that we had a request to keep the record open, and so this is what that looks like. So the public hearing would be closed, so no more oral testimony. Everything would be in writing. So in the first 7 days, anyone can submit written evidence, argument, or testimony. We do have a hard time and date for those. The second 7 days, anybody has the opportunity to respond to new evidence presented in the first 7-day period. The third 7 days, the applicant, if requested, may submit final written arguments, and they may not provide new evidence. And again, do hard due and date and time. And then after all those 7 days, then the Planning Commission would continue this matter to the February 26th meeting for discussion and deliberation and a decision. And with that, I'm happy to take your questions. It's a lot.
Thank you, Kelly. Do we have any questions by commission members? You have one. Yes, sir.
The multifamily that was designed in the 2017, what was the height of those buildings?
They were 2-story structures.
Okay.
I'm not certain of this. I can certainly look and
Was it
see
the
what the height was.
I can tell you.
What was it, the 2000?
They were-
I'm not going to ask you. You know that project.
Well, I'm sorry.
Was the 2003 project, did that identify 3-story structures?
Yes, they were
originally?
3-story structures.
So that's 2017 was somewhat of an improvement to lower the height, or were they just topography going to be sited in a place where they were easier?
I think it was to lower the height of the structures, if I recall correctly. So that was one of the significant changes between 2003 and 2017. The other was to go from condos, which is a form of ownership, to rental housing.
Okay,
So that was a decision that was made in 2017.
okay. Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, yeah, yes, sir.
Can you turn your
Wait,
mic on,
turn on
please,
your
Mr.
microphone,
Besco?
please.
Thank you. Some of the comments came in, and they were saying that they're talking about a evacuation time estimate on that. There's nothing in our code that requires something like that, is there?
There is not.
Okay, and then I imagine fire department is okay with what's been submitted and and the evacuation plans and all that has worked out, right?
Yes, as I understand it, we
Okay.
can certainly invite Mr. Farrington up.
All right, thank you.
Okay, and, yes.
So, just to piggyback on Dave's question a little bit, for like a single-family residence, what's the height cap?
The maximum height in the single-family zones is 35 feet.
And these, by the same measuring standards, are
35 feet.
35 feet, okay. Sorry, hopefully I'm not getting too far outside the box here, but, so if I understand correctly, no traffic study required for this change, but also no traffic study period for the whole PUD. Was that because they weren't required back then, or did I?
It
read
may have been. I looked for some legislative history and I was unable to determine why, but in 2003, there was no traffic analysis required. And so we did analyze some numbers in 2017 and again, for this application, and determined that, again, the difference in trip generation was not significant enough to warrant a new study.
Okay.
Got another question.
Let's see. This is sort of a question for Eric, but I'll ask it now anyway. Were staff and legal are comfortable with the 50% requirement, which is one of the requirements that they have of, it's like number of owners and value. I mean, they went to great lengths to prove that they, or have a legal opinion that they were. I just want to make sure the city was comfortable with that.
So the 50%,
There's like a requirement for a modification that I think it's like 50% of the landowners and 50 vacant landowners and 50% of the
yeah,
value of the
gotcha,
vacant
that requirement, gotcha. I, under this record, I have no concerns about that, and I'll be honest, I trust my math a whole lot less than I trust planning's math, and so if planning is not flagged out as a problem, I'm good with that conclusion.
Yeah, I did review that, Mr. Pulver, and it was satisfactory to me.
Okay. So there's one of the, I want to make sure I understood it right, but one of the criteria, at least as I read it, in 10.198, so revision or termination of PUD, is number 1C, talks about compatibility. So is that a subjective term, or is there more specific guidance for us to follow in that regard?
I think it's subjective. To me, in this particular case, we're going from a residential use to a residential use. So to me, that's compatible. If it was, we're going to put a commercial use up there, I think that there would be a different analysis. But we're changing from a residential development to a residential development. The form is changing, 36 additional units, but the use itself is the same.
Okay. Sorry, I have a few more. I apologize. Oh, go ahead.
I did have some comments on the end, but as long as you ring that bell, if you don't mind, I want to jump in
Please,
a
go
little
ahead.
bit on that. So one of the important things to stress in this process, as Ms. Aiken mentioned, is this is a modification of existing PUD. And there's some attorneys in the audience who are going to chuckle when I say this, but when looking at a PUD modification, it's important that you don't compare to the bare ground physical status quo, but you compare to the prior approval. And in terms of compatibility, I think what that would mean is, in context for what is compatible, you look at what was already approved as compatible, and not just is it compatible compared to the current natural environment as it exists. And so, while the attorneys in the audience and I may not always agree on the exact methodology for comparing a PUD approval to a proposed modification, there's no question that you have to use that prior approval for the compatibility analysis and other PUD modifications. So I think in compatibility, looking at what was already approved there, the condo units and then the townhouses has got to be part of that compatibility analysis. You can't just look at other units in other areas of the PUD in terms of compatibility.
Thank you.
What, hang on, you got another question, or are you done?
I got a whole load.
You got a bunch of questions
Yeah.
for staff? Okay.
Yeah.
Ask away.
So if I read it right, in regards to like, call it landscaping, it seemed like it was mostly sort of targeted towards the proposed improved area. Talked about shading over the parking and driveways and whatever else. Is it within our purview to speak to other landscaping within the total parcel? I guess what I'm getting at is there's a lot of, on the current proposal on the table, there's a lot of open space, as you pointed out. I mean, it's much increased. But I don't, as far as I can tell, there's not a lot of plantings proposed in those areas. They're just talking about leveraging what's there and thinking that will provide some level of buffer.
That's correct.
But is it within our purview to require something in that regard, something more, or is it, I mean, they have a table that says we meet what's required, but are the requirements strictly limited to kind of where the improvements are and what's being done?
Let me take a look at the conditions that we can add. I will happily do that. My instinct is that you may be able to.
Okay. I think that's it. Sorry.
Okay,
thanks.
you had a question and then down
Yeah.
there.
Okay. So it was kind of along the same lines of the tree, the shading, but differences between the 2017 and the current project. They originally were having single-family residences as a buffer for the existing homes. Now they're going to retain all the oak trees. And if I looked at the landscaping, because you're also asking us to look at the plan design as well, right?
Yes.
So in that, having sat on SPAC, I think that the table of contents showed that they were satisfactory on the number of trees in the project, but they were short on shrubs. Do we have the latitude to increase and say you need to add more trees in the existing scrub oak around the area to enhance the buffering?
Maybe. The issue that rises to my mind is I know that oak trees they have very tender feet. And so I would be concerned about disturbing their root system in order to augment them when you may end up destroying them in your effort to make it better.
Okay. I thought I had another one, but I'm blanking, so I'll
Well,
pass.
there's still time. Down at the end, Larry?
Thank you, Chair. In the staff report, there was a geotechnical and geological report. And in that report, that there was a lot of recommendations that they recommended doing. I didn't see in our list required that they had to comply with. I didn't see anything that they had to comply with the geologic and geotechnical report, and unless that's automatic, then the building department would oversee that or not. But I just wanted to make sure that those recommendations would be adhered to, and they wouldn't be ignored.
Thank you. I'm certainly happy to add that as a condition.
Okay, anything? Yes, sir.
Thank you. I feel like I'm separated from all you guys with Commissioner Wallen leaving. Going back to the access reference, especially with a lot of it related to future developments, do you feel staff has shown or have seen those future developments, actually representing performance of those developments coming to fruition? Because it seems like that's a lot of the demand of that circulation on the future developments.
So we're talking about this exhibit, Commissioner?
Correct.
Okay. Yes. So the yellow are the existing, the red lines are what's proposed. We do have an approved urbanization plan. This is MD4, the old Hillcrest Orchard. We have seen a little bit of development already on at Spring Street. We have a subdivision, I think, approved in this area already. We do have an active land use approval on the property adjacent to the west. It's called Red Tail Heights, I believe. Do I think that these will come to pass in the future? I do. Do I know when in the future? I do not.
Okay, thank you. And then going back to, there was a comment especially with a lot of the public input regarding the ETE. Knowing that that's not a requirement in our code, with the wildfire hazards and some of the other findings that were brought to our attention, it still could be applicable, correct? If there's some type of performance evaluation on emergency egress.
So that's an interesting question, and part of the reason that I brought up the binding nature of our land use decisions is that there are 173 dwelling units approved in Mountaintop, and there was not that kind of an analysis required in 2003 or 2017. I'm not, just like we didn't have to require a new traffic analysis, I'm not confident that we would be permitted to require something like that under the binding of the existing land use decisions.
I concur.
Thank you.
And then the last thing, I think, and obviously this would go to the agent, but just clarifying on the emergency egress, I think it was related to the one that was connecting to Evening Ridge Terrace. I just want to make sure, I think there was, at least in the memo from CSA, consideration of making that an open access. Is that the southwest?
It's this one.
That is the one, okay.
Yeah, I chose a poor color there. It's orange dots.
Okay, perfect. That's what I wanted to clarify. Okay, thank you.
Okay, yeah, yes.
I just want to make sure I didn't miss this in all the many variations. I understand these are going to be private streets, and I understand the use of churros as opposed to like bike lanes. But is there any kind of sidewalk or any connectivity just for like, I don't know, ADA movement through the development or to and from the development?
There are, it's a little tricky to see them on this plan. There are sidewalks that connect most of the buildings. I think there are parts where it doesn't, like in the entry here. I don't know that it goes all the way out to Bordeaux. But the bulk of the interior has connections, has sidewalk connections between the buildings.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other, okay. Not seeing any, I guess you want to reserve time for rebuttal, huh?
I would if it was my application.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Inside joke. Okay, with that, we will open the public hearing and ask the applicant to come forward and talk about the project.
Good evening, Commissioners. Again, for the record, Jay Harlan with CSA Planning with offices at 44 and 97 Brown Ridge here in Medford. We represent the owners of the property for the requested PUD revision. Kelly, as usual, did a pretty detailed evaluation of the different things going on here, so I'm not going to revisit all of those things, but I do have a few comments, and some of them parallel things that Kelly said. But one is, from a land use planning perspective, our view of it is the overall land use intensity is not being increased to an appreciable degree. We really kind of held it to the trip generation. Like, the unit count went up a little from what was proposed before, but the idea was we didn't want, the trip generation would be equivalent between the two. Apparently, since we filed it, there's a new manual, and those come out ever so often, and it went from 11 to 12, so now apparently it's forecast to be slightly less than what Kelly Sando came up with when she calculated it when we filed it. But that was kind of what was holding the level from a land use intensity standpoint. The other thing is, like, the amount of impervious surface that is being proposed is quite a bit less than the 2017 approval. As Kelly mentioned, the overall density range is still well within the urban residential density range under the comprehensive plan. Another thing I would point out as well is that, due to the passage of the middle housing statutes, however it is you feel about those, depending on what would happen with those single-family lots, the actual number of units may not actually be going up at all from what you could plat under the 2017 approval. So, point that out. As Kelly mentioned, it's land use matter, so we really got to look at this PUD revision request through the lens of the criteria, so I'd like to go through that a little bit. One is for PUDs, preserving important natural features. I do think we're trying to preserve more trees, and there's also a larger undeveloped area sort of around and adjacent to the drainage to the east, and I think those are probably for the whole site. Those are the most interesting natural features. With respect to a mixture of residential and commercial land uses, that really isn't changing. The PUD already has commercial and residential in it. The commercial is down along McAndrews. The residential is elsewhere. With respect to mixture of housing types in residential areas, I would say I think that was a pretty important consideration in the original PUD, and I think it continues to be. The original mountaintop and the congregate care has always been where the attached housing was contemplated to be within the PUD. So oh, got my pages out of order. And I think kind of one of the things that I wonder about is post-COVID, it seems like in the marketplace, the demand for the congregate care housing doesn't seem to be certainly as strong as it was 15 years ago for some reason. So, I don't, maybe that will get built, but it's not built yet. And if it doesn't, then, this is one of the mixtures of housing in the PUD. With respect to open space, the PUD criteria requires areas for common use or ownership. As Kelly mentioned, there was trails in the prior approvals. They're still proposed to be trails for common use of the residents. Next, the proposed code modifications. That's part of a PUD, and Kelly also talked about those. Most of the modifications are kind of what I would call relatively minor things related to the new multifamily standards that didn't exist at the time. They're relatively new. They didn't exist at the time of the 2017 PUD amendment. They certainly didn't in 2003. Our firm has a fair amount of experience with those. I think they work pretty good on flat sites, and steeper sites, I think there's some challenges with meeting those, and I think we've actually seen quite a few projects come through that have some slope. They're having it's sort of almost impossible, I think, to meet some of those standards for a steep site. But this is part of a PUD, so there's a path to get it approved and request modifications. Next is the criteria about transportation, which is consistency with the function, safety, and capacity of the transportation system. That criteria reads more subjectively than it actually is. First, for revisions, the code is very clear that you get to rely on a sort of what's approved as far as setting the bar. And also, historically, the way Medford has applied that criteria, even for a brand new PUD, right, is that if the level of service isn't, is going to be maintained or is it going to be changed as a result of the traffic level of service isn't going to be changed as a result of the PUD and the functional classification of the roads, i.e. you're not going to make a standard residential street into an arterial or something due to the changes that you're proposing, and the project complies with the fire code. Historically, Medford's application of that criteria for PUDs is if those three things are met, then it's considered to meet that criteria. Next is that the property is not subject to any moratorium on construction or land development. Moratoriums are pretty rare. Medford doesn't have any moratoriums. Next is that the open space is appropriate for its intended use and function. I think that is really what we're trying to do here with this design is to add more buffering and screening from the existing development to the new development area by leaving those areas open, have trails, and then also have a trail that is contemplated to also function as a fire break. So that's, I think, consistent with the intended use and function. I think I would point out that Park's desire to have a trail through the open space is pretty good evidence that it's appropriate for the intended use and function, because I think they're looking for the broader community to have the ability to use that common area. In the context of a revision to the PUD, the other thing I would point out is that any housing type, as Kelly mentioned, is allowed under the code. So with respect to demand for public utilities and facilities for this area, it really isn't changed. You're like, one of the examples I would give is sewer. Single family tends to demand more sewer than a multifamily product, so there's slightly more units, but the household size is smaller. There's generally fewer people. Some of these, there's like 60, I think 60s, one bed, one bath that are proposed with this layout, right? So when you add those things up, more than likely probably the sewer demand goes down. So. And then lastly, I was touched on this, the PUD revision, the PC is required to find that it's compatible. I think what I would say is that in this context, in land use context for PUD revision, it's not like a design popularity contest in terms of I like this color or I like that color. It's really about compatibility from the standpoint that there shouldn't be a revision that will cause existing development to not be able to function in the way that it was originally designed, approved, and permitted, right? So I think that's the correct application of the compatibility standard. Like an example I would give, which is an extreme example, but to make the point, right? The reality is in a PUD, you can do 20% non-permitted uses in the zone if you meet the requirements for that in the PUD. So there's almost sort of like, you can ask for anything, right? Well, if somebody requested a revision to put in a heliport so they can run middle of the night, tours of Crater Lake on moonlit nights or something, like that is going to be a compatibility issue if you've got housing anywhere nearby because helicopters are taking off and landing, right? So I think that's the correct way to think about that criterion as it relates to a revision. Last thing, just a couple more things, and I'll get to the questions that were asked. The other thing I would mention is this is a challenging site. Like, Bev, who's done a ton of design in our office for years, like, she and I talked about it. It's like one of the more difficult sites I think we've ever worked on. It really is tricky between where the existing accesses are, where the slopes are, and getting it to work. I think we've come up with a pretty good balance. So, we're more than doubling, or maybe more than doubling the amount of open space, which I think is a good thing. We're dealing with the grades, I think, in a logical way. Still not perfect, but I think it's pretty good considering the amount of slope that this site has. With respect to the size of the structures, when you actually look at it, right, like on the long ways, on the longest structures, it's about somewhere between 2 and 3, it's about, well, distance-wise, it's about less than 2 of the width of a lot of the elevations on some of the houses in the neighborhood. So we've done a lot to kind of create efficient buildings. Articulation, they do have a lot of articulation. All the units have patios and balconies. You have the shed roofs. You have different materials and stuff happening. I'm getting close.
Let's hope so. Okay.
And then the other thing that I really want to mention too was the top floor design. There was some discussion about building height. Medford measures building height from the top plate, so you can do 3 stories, be 35 feet, and then put a whole roof on top of that. Like, that's allowed under the code. You don't need a PUD modification to do that. It's just permitted. We could have done that. I didn't think it was the right thing to do. I don't think the designers thought it was the right thing to do, and so we've put the 3rd floor and 2nd floor. Some of these are 2 stories, some are 3rd. The 3rd floor is incorporated in the roof structure with the idea being to sort of meet the unit count that can make the project work, but not have the peak of the roof be nearly as high. I mean, it's just simply much lower by doing it that way. So I think that's a unique thing. That wasn't something that we were required to do, but it seemed like the right thing to do. Ultimately, the architects, Cushing Terrell, came up with, I think, a pretty efficient design that still ends up with a good product, creates a lot of interest, but doesn't have the buildings quite as tall as they otherwise would be. So that's on the design. Then the last thing I would talk about is the access, which is, Kelly mentioned the access in the south, which is kind of the curly Q access there. We're proposing that as a gravel emergency only access. But it doesn't have to be, no pun intended, not gonna die on that hill if the planning commission is like, hey, I really want this to be a paved 22-foot additional access, that's fine. Really part of the reason for it is no matter what you do, it's going to be at max grade, right? And so when it's slick up there, and sometimes it does get snowy and slick up there, actually the gravel is something you can drive on easier than the pavement. And so I think it actually, in that situation, would create a better emergency access. And then it's also just less impervious surface to deal with from a storm drainage standpoint. So we can pave it. The other thing I like about it too is, like, distance-wise, it makes it so that the sort of the origin destination out of the project is more or less equidistant using the two accesses. So the idea, kind of what I would hope would happen is people would sort of magically split which way they go, which results in a more balanced travel in and out from the project. But it does, otherwise, if that's there, I think a significant portion of the people would go down that access and out, sort of that more direct way, even though it is sort of circular. So, like I said, not gonna, if that's what the Planning Commission really wants, I think that's fine. And then I can move into questions at this point. I'm happy to take your questions, or I can answer the questions that were already posed if you would like me to do that, or if you want to re-ask them.
Thank you. I think we probably all have questions for you first, so you can hold on to your answers for the other ones. So go ahead.
I think mine are easy. They're access related. The 3 access points that are identified here in green, and then there's that one furthest to the north.
Yeah.
Is that proposed to be emergency egress only, or I thought I heard
That's
maybe
what
that
we
would be-
proposed initially, but if that is definitely, like, I think staff's preference is that be open as a full-time, and we have no objection to that.
Okay. And then the second question is, at Bordeaux, I see it's built as a bulb there in the event that it becomes a gated access way for turnarounds. Is there a position at this time if that is going to be gated?
I don't, for this kind of a project, I don't think you'd be able to gate it.
Okay.
Like, as a practical matter, like, people got to go to work, people got, like, if it was, it would be a gate that would be open almost all the time, I guess.
Okay.
So.
All right, that's all I have for you at this
Okay.
time.
Yep. Oh, I guess. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so I thought about my question that I couldn't think of before, and Kelly was already off, so I'll ask you because you have some expertise and she can weigh in. In regards to the open space, you went from 8 acres up to about 12, roughly?
No, I think it's 16 to 17.
You almost doubled.
Yeah, almost doubled.
So with that, in doing the calculations, the max number for this PUD was 657 housing dwelling units. That leaves a balance of 40 dwelling units that could still be developed in the overall Vista Point PUD. Does the client have the ability to come back and say, oh, okay, well, we already built our multifamily, let's go ahead and use up those other 40 and take up some open space?
Not without coming back here, and I think that would be a pretty there's geotechnical reasons why I think that's hard.
Does he have the right to do it?
He could potentially have the right to come back and request the revision. Would he be able to do it unilaterally? No.
Okay.
No. Going back to the landscape question, I think Kelly did touch on it. The idea with the open space landscaping is to keep the oaks, which there's quite a few of. I mean, still some of them to get the path and stuff, like some of them aren't going to make it, right? But we like to keep as many as we can for screening. We're also not opposed to adding more of those. I think that'll be like the next step as the landscape architect to start looking at it. But what she said is right, is if you do more intensive plantings that have a lot of irrigation, the problem is more than likely the oaks are going to die, right? And so the oaks go away, and eventually you might have some bigger trees, but then there's going to be a big period where you don't have any, and I think that would be kind of unfortunate.
So I do have a follow-up, yeah. So along the landscaping, since you asked that question, typically when site plan and architecture is going to look at the entire project, the whole layout, everything else, and the landscape architect will have already granted or given us details on where the plantings are going to be, the trash enclosures, where the bicycle's going to go, all the parking. It's a detailed map. We're being asked to approve what really otherwise would go to site plan and architecture and review the buildings. But now we're making comments about the landscape plans. We don't have any landscape plans that are detailed that show outside of the footprint of the parking lots and the buildings.
I mean, it's a good point, right? And I think part of the reason is, like, it's hard to do that now. I guess what I would say is, if that's a sticking point for the commission and the commission wants to delegate to SPAC to review the landscape plan, the final landscape plan, like, I don't think we have an issue with that. I mean, there's definitely, the project is designed to try and minimize retaining walls, but and hopefully they can do it mostly with terraces, right, rather than big ones. But there's still going to need to be some retaining walls, and then that feeds into what trees will stay versus what needs replanted. And so if that's the will of the commission, I don't have a problem with the final landscape. We got to go through final PUD anyways, so if we want to have the landscape plan go to SPAC, we have no objection to that.
Thank you. Okay, I've got a few for you
Sure.
as well. Excuse me. So
I feel like now I got to open up the plans because Mark is asking.
yeah, you probably will have to.
Yeah. Very good.
Excuse me. First thing, amenities. So we know what was offered in the approved 2017 plan, and so what are the amenities that are being proposed in this plan?
So there's not any built amenities that they're proposing. It's mainly the open space and the trails, and a lot of interior bike parking. Like, there's a bike parking requirement, but I think this has 100 inside stored bike spaces, and I think kind of ultimately the hope is for able-bodied people that this is a biking sort of apartment mecca. So that's kind of is the idea.
Nice. Okay. All right. So we have a nice plan in front of us, and I got to say I'm appreciative that you had professionals looking at both the landscape part of this and the architecture part of it. But we probably want to look at your building elevations. I think is probably the best place to start. So if we can get
Sure.
that on the, you brought one up. Well, you may need to refer to yours, but maybe we can get it on the, there we go. Okay, so this looks like a building designed for a flat site. And the buildings are approximately 150 feet long and 65 feet deep. Round numbers, about 10,000 square feet of footprint, all right?
Yep.
So building, and one of the plans put in finished floor elevations. And so if I can go through those. So you've got building one has a finished floor of 1932, and it has the grades run from 1928 to 1942. So you have like a 16-foot difference in elevation from one corner to another. I'm not seeing how we're dealing with that on this plan. Building two has a 14-foot difference from one corner to the other. I'm not seeing how you're dealing with that in this plan. Building three has actually has is a building with the garages on it, like this has, and it's a 15-foot difference from one corner of the building to the other. I'm not seeing how you're going to how you're going to be able to get the garages anywhere close to looking something like this. Do you have? I mean, I could go on to the rest of them. There are most of that's about the only building that has the big difference on the front, but there are some that are like 9 to 20 feet above the ground around them. It seems to me that we need to have plans that actually show what's being constructed on this rather than the prototypes here.
So I think, I would say we've thought a lot about grades. I did notice, by the way, and let's see, the building two, I didn't notice that finished floor, that was a typo. It ended up with the same finished floor as building one, which it clearly would not be, because that's on the high side, right? So that, I just looked at that and went, I actually caught that today. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. That you would be building it much higher than the existing grade, right? So that just doesn't make sense. The buildings are long and, I mean, they're not super narrow, but they're relatively narrow. I mean, there's plenty of houses in the existing Vista Point where one of the elevations is much longer than 60 feet. And so.
But the other one, in a case like that, it's not 150 feet.
What's that?
I said the building may be in the longest dimension, 60 feet, but it's not 60 by 150.
Correct, but what I'm saying is that the arrangement is mostly the long of the building is running with the topo, with the exception of a couple of them. And 100% of that isn't worked out yet. I think some of that is gonna have to get into some of the final engineering to figure out what we're doing as far as, where some terracing makes sense, how much excavation is gonna need to happen sort of along the top to, some of the ridge is gonna get flattened out, right? So those are preliminary finished floor elevations. I think it's gonna be fair, but that's, as you know, that's like pretty expensive, involved engineering to figure all of that out when we don't know if the overall plan, that's why it's a multi-step process, right? When we don't know if the overall plan will be approved. I guess I disagree that these are designed for a flat site. They were really picked to do this. That's why they're running with the grades for the most part. And that's why, for example, like the building 2 is one of the shorter ones, because there we are fighting grade that direction, right? So that's sort of why it was done that way. Like there's a lot of garden apartments that I see that they're square or close to square, right? Those would be a big problem, on a site like this, because then you're building out that much more into the steep part.
Well, I guess my point about this too is that the way the buildings are set up, you can't really split these vertically anywhere. Things are too close together, and your main hallway inside is not set up to be able to split this. So you really have to make this work, you have to have a flat, you have to create a flat site, at least on this side, the one that we're looking at, the front side, to be able to make this building work. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I think for the most part, that's why we're not going, try to keep the 60 feet as narrow as we could and get the rest of floor plans and everything to work to avoid that. Because the alternative is you put the buildings right on the ridge top, but then you have big cuts and fills with all the circulation that goes around it. So that, this was the idea, is to have the sort of the buildings, and that's also, for example, the ones that are the two-story and then a third, right? Those the downhill foundation steps down, so that picks up a whole story on the downhill side for that exact reason. So.
Okay.
Now, if what I would say is you're like, hey, staff is recommending you just approve the architecture, but the planning commission as a group is like, we're not going to do that. Like we need to, this needs to go to SPAC because of the amount of additional work that needs to be done between PUD plan approval and actual, like a truly finished floor elevation, and all the roads are figured out and all that stuff. Like I understand that, and I guess if that's the alternative, then we would certainly prefer that to not having the project approved. So if that's where the planning commission lands, I understand.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes.
I can see from one of the maps, you've got an accessible garage and a few accessible vehicle stalls. Do you know how many, as currently proposed, any accessible units?
The building code will dictate that, but we'll at least have to have the minimum.
Okay.
Right?
That's the
And
standard.
yeah, we at least have to have the minimum, and that's, as Kelly talked about, that's also, that was one of the conversations, was how do you get circulation between the buildings for the ADA, right? And the idea was to use the corridors on the inside for that, because it's, because where the circulation is out in the parking lot, I think most of the able-bodied people will just move around in the parking lot, right? But for those people, if they need to get the trash enclosure or whatever, using the already flat buildings is an option. And I can tell you, to Chair McKechnie, one thing we did talk about as well is that like we don't have any like stepped buildings the long way, right? But looking at a couple of them, like it might be that you would need to do that, right? And like one of them is a garage building, and so you might end up losing 2 garage spaces and do a ramp to get up from one side to the other, right? So I think that's all doable, but it's just at the next step.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chair. Along with some of the questions that Commissioner McKechnie had about the building and length, they have the ability that if there is a slight slope down from unit to unit, they can step down, can't they? And if I heard you right, that's what you're kind of thinking about, what's going to take place once you get if you get the approval. Then you'll start looking into getting into the weeds about it.
Yeah, I would say the long way, it would be tough to do that, right? But I do think halfway down the building, you could do that, but the default would be to try and figure out how to have the pad flat, end to end, if you can figure out how to do that and, have it all work. And, and we've done enough to go, like, the engineers and the architects are like, we can get this to work, but it's definitely not easy. And that goes back to it's challenging site.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
Okay, no other questions? So let me get to my script here and
Very good. Thank you.
Okay. All right, with that, we are ready to hear from people in the audience who would like to speak regarding this application. And if you wish to, anyway, let me finish here. If you wish to speak, please make sure that you've signed in legibly and tell us your name and your address and offer your testimony for consideration. And we're working a little differently tonight.
Working a little differently tonight, Mr. Chair. We have a couple I'm not sure how many folks on Zoom, but we did have a request to allow Mr. Hathaway to go first on Zoom.
Yes, I will allow Mr. Hathaway.
He's ready for action. And then we have this is highly unusual. So thanks everybody for your patience. Let's see. Okay.
Kelly, can I help?
No, I think we're good. I think we have what we need. We should be able to see the shared screen. Excellent. So I think if you're ready, Mr. Chair, I think we'll invite Mr. Hathaway first.
We are ready.
Mr. Chair, can you hear me?
Sure can.
Oh, excellent. Thank you very much, because typically in the past, I think I've seen a video where I see you all and then you actually see the speaker, but I've heard the whole thing very well and your system works very well. But let me introduce myself. My name is Greg Hathaway. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Hathaway Larson. My address is 125 Northwest Cooch Street, Portland 97209. And I represent ATFS LLC, who owns property in the Vista Point PUD. And my client opposes the proposed PUD provision. I did provide a letter with exhibits to Kelly this morning, and I'm not sure if my letter got caught in the glitch this morning with staff, but I understand from Kelly that it is part of the record. And so obviously I want to make sure that your commission has the opportunity to review that letter along with some of the photographic exhibits that I've attached. My client views the proposed PUD revision as a significant modification that is incompatible with the visual identity and character of the existing Vista Point development. And I want to go back to a comment that one of the commissioners made about what we would be comparing the proposed development with. And I agree with that standard that was cited, because we're not comparing what's happening out here with what happened in 2003, but we're comparing what's going on in 2025 or 2026. That's what we're comparing this development that's proposed with the existing development within the Vista Point PUD. Now, perhaps the most important legal criterion applicable to the Planning Commission's review of the proposed PUD revision is whether the proposal is compatible with the whole of the existing Vista Point development. And the Medford Land Development Code Section 10.1981C imposes a burden on the applicant to demonstrate that the proposed PUD revision is compatible with the surrounding existing Vista Point development. In particular, the first question for your Planning Commission is whether the proposed PUD revision is compatible with the visual identity and character of the existing Vista Point development. It's our opinion that the applicant has not met its burden of proof that the proposed PUD revision is compatible with the visual identity and character of the existing Vista Point development for the following two reasons. First, the applicant did not even address whether the proposed PUD revision was compatible with the visual identity and character of the existing Vista Point development. Two, the photographic and video evidence that I submitted in my letter showing the proposed three-story multifamily buildings demonstrates that the proposed PUD revision is incompatible with the visual identity and character of the existing Vista Point development. And I would encourage the Planning Commission to go to the link in my letter, which is a video flyover showing the proposed three-story multi-family buildings in relationship to the existing development in Vista Point. It's for these reasons that we're respectfully requesting the Planning Commission deny this application. Now, I did ask staff if we could continue the hearing tonight, and I saw that Kelly presented that to you earlier, and I agreed with the procedure that she outlined for you, and we support that. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you. Do we have any questions of this? Okay, appears there are no questions to be asked.
So, Mr. Chair, I do have, Mr. Hathaway did send a link to the video. I'm prepared to display that if that's okay.
Sure, go ahead.
All right. All right, here we go, Mr. Hathaway.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. So if we're ready to continue, also for your information, Mr. Hathaway, your letter, we did receive it, and it is at their places this evening. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't know if there are others that wanted to testify via
Is there
Zoom.
anybody else on Zoom that?
Yes, we have Gordon Casey. Mr. Casey, if you want to unmute yourself. There we go.
Hi there. This is Kelly Casey, Gordon's wife.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Kelly Casey, and I live in the Vista Point neighborhood. I want to explain why I remain concerned after what we've heard tonight. So much of the discussion has focused on whether the project fits within overall density limits, but that doesn't address the core issues. This proposal represents a major change from what was previously planned for this area. Earlier plans for the Mountaintop Village consisted mainly of townhomes and single-family homes. What's now proposed is nearly 200 units and large multi-story buildings. That is a significant shift in scale, building type, and intensity. So with that change comes real safety concerns. This is a wildfire-prone area, as we all know. With limited access and most traffic, including emergency traffic, that would be funneled onto the same few roads. The traffic number presented reflects everyday conditions, not what happens when hundreds of people need to evacuate at once. I'm also concerned about the site itself. This is a steep mountainside, and we've heard it described as one of the more challenging sites to build on. So creating flat building areas requires extensive grading and engineered structures, which raises reasonable questions about the long-term stability, drainage access, and emergency response when paired with dense multi-story housing. My concern isn't whether this can be engineered, but whether this is the right place for this level of development, given the terrain, wildfire risk, and access constraints. For these reasons, I respectfully ask that the Commission deny the proposal as currently designed or require further safety and evacuation analysis before moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I might, Ms. Casey, would you give your address, please, for the record?
Yes, we live at 4516 Park Ridge Drive.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have somebody else calling in on Zoom?
I do not see anybody else's hand up on Zoom, so I can start with the yellow
Okay,
sheets.
let's do that.
I have Mark Crennan, Lauren Crennan, Michelle Hoke,
So just go ahead and line up over on the side there, so.
excuse me, Ted Minold, and Mark Bartholomew, excuse me.
Please come forward.
Thank you. My name's Mike Crennan. I live at 4872 Bordeaux Avenue. And in addition to being a concerned homeowner, I am a professional civil engineer and a construction manager with 40-plus years of experience. And I have done a number of projects, multifamily projects like this, none on as difficult or steep of terrain as this would be. I think the questions Chairman McKechnie raised about the slope and the length of the buildings are right on and deserve more consideration. But I want to focus my comments here tonight on traffic impact. I'm surprised to find out there was never a traffic study done, if I understand correctly. It wasn't required in 2003, and then it wasn't done in 2017 because there wasn't determined to be significant changes. But I've measured the street widths in our neighborhood. There's only one street, Vista Point, that's wide enough for two-way traffic and parking on both sides. Park Ridge Drive in Bordeaux, which would be one of the main accesses to this development, are 36-foot wide curb to curb. When you subtract out 9 foot each side for parking, you've got 18 foot of travel way. For general residential, recommendations are 10 foot wide per lane or a 20-foot travel way. If you envision buses, school buses, city buses going up there sometime, that goes to 11 feet. So you'd need to be 22 foot wide plus your 18 on each side. You'd need a 40 foot wide street. Don't have that. So it currently works as a residential neighborhood. You drive up to an obstruction, parking on both sides, and the cars come in two ways. One waits while the other one goes through. Works with the level of traffic we have. But that would change greatly with any type of multifamily done up at the top of the hill. but we already have what was approved in 2017, so my arguments tonight are focused against expanding that from the 132 townhouses plus 41 single-family, 173 units, that really would go from not 209 but 219 units when you count the duplexes as 2. So it increases by 46. Traffic on the west side of Mountaintop Village, which is Bordeaux and Park Ridge access, would more than double. In fact, it would increase by 138% if you assume that half of the people from Mountaintop Village will exit that on that route. So I think that a traffic study should be done, no matter what type of multifamily is built there, because the amount of traffic will increase greatly. I also disagree that apartments would have lower vehicle use in this location. That statistic would assume that there are bus routes and alternate means of transportation available, which there would not in this case, where this multifamily is located at the top of the hill, the end of the residential streets, is far away from the major arterial, East McAndrews, as possible. So I would urge the Planning Commission to reject the expansion to 199 apartment units. Thank you.
Please. We need to maintain a decorum here, so please, no clapping or shouting. Thank you.
Yes, hello. My name is Llewellyn Crennan, and I reside at 4872 Bordeaux Avenue. The townhomes that are, or the apartments that are proposed are, they're to the back of my home. Back in 2009, we had what was called the Deer Ridge Fire, and it basically started right in that neighborhood. There weren't as many homes as obviously there are now. At the time, the fire chief at the time was Greg Kleinberg, and he actually was quoted in the Mail Tribune saying that we dodged a bullet. Had the wind gone in a different direction for the way that they evacuated all the homes, and this happened in the middle of the day, it would have possibly been a disaster. With that many homes, apartments, I should say, not homes, apartments, built at the very top end. This is a very steep, people say it's a steep grade. It's a climb. Everyone around town can see the manor. This is going to look like the manor up there on the base of Roxanne. Those people, for emergency vehicles to go in and everybody's trying to get out, it's not going to happen. I drive a big car. People always, I see some people with little cars. They're not going to get out of there. I'm going to keep my big truck and my big Suburban so I can just drive over the sidewalk. And as far as it being a bicycle community, it might be in that little area, but the arterial artery to get out is McAndrews. It's a winding 2-lane cars. It's 45 miles an hour, or 40 miles an hour. Cars always go much faster. There are no bike lanes. So, and there's no buses up there. There's no, for apartments anyway, you would think it would be located where you'd have access to public transportation. There is nothing. It's a hike. So those are my comments. I could go on, but those are the two things I wanted to bring up, the traffic impact and the Deer Ridge fire was human caused. As I stated in my comments, most of these wildfires, they're not started in the wild. They're started by humans and become wildfires because of the winds and the conditions. And, as the former fire chief said, they dodged a bullet. We all know it can happen, so thank you.
Thank you.
Can you bring up this picture?
Am I able to show a picture?
So we have to put it on Elmo over here.
That's okay if it works.
It does. Why it's not happening. There we go.
Okay.
It's gonna be tricky.
Okay. So, my name is Michelle Hoke. I live at 4551 Deer Ridge Drive. My professional background is I am currently a developer in the city of Medford. I am a contractor in past years. I am also currently a property management and manage about 30 pieces of property, and am about ready to start construction with another contractor of another 10 homes. So I am for building. I am for increasing housing in our urban district for those that are, for all of us that need new homes and more homes. I live, if you can pull that back up real quick. Oh, sorry. Let me just show this. This is the street that is currently the sub area. I drove by this morning. I live one house away from this street. The vehicle that you see there is a regular work van. Can everybody hear me? Sorry. Slightly smaller than what an ambulance would be. So that shows you the width of what that street is that they're calling the secondary exit for. I've been happily watching, you can kind of see it's muddy and stuff. I've been happily watching the construction of a home that is right there. So once built, there's not going to be a way to increase that road. Go ahead. So what she's bringing up is the corner of Deer Ridge and Vista Point. This is Deer Ridge, and like I said, I live 2 houses down from there. So I see the traffic every day that would be at this corner to bring in, so she has it situated this way. So if you went, so the subject area where that says, that is the road that I'm talking about. That's what you saw on there. And right there at the corner of Deer Ridge and Vista Point, I live one house down on Deer Ridge. I see the traffic that is right there, and so I understand the amount of traffic that would increase in there. And that's why I'm opposing this. I sent in an email earlier, so I just want to add a couple of things to that. One is in the summer, we have a significant water pressure decrease, because what you can't see, or you can kind of see way up in the corner, is we have a water holding tank, and we have to pay increased water prices to get it to go up there. And then it's just trickled down to us. And there's not enough water pressure because there's not enough water. You know, just in the general area of Medford, we slow down in that, and the water quality is much worse.
Thank you.
I'll stop there.
Excuse me, my name is Ted Manold, and I live at 4326 Vista Point. I'm a 30-year veteran of Los Angeles Fire Department. I've been on many wildland incidents and the urban interface. I just want to mention what Mike Crennan said earlier about whether or not, what the patterns would look like with the emergency vehicles coming in and that kind of evacuation. It would be a nightmare. I don't think so. I promise you, you will end up with a nightmare up there with vehicles, emergency vehicles trying to get up and people trying to get out. The problem, another problem that you have is the proximity to Prescott Park. You got a lot of people that use that Prescott Park, myself included. We ride bikes and do our hiking up there, both my wife and I. You're going to have a lot of activity up there. You will end up with an incident that, as Mike's wife said, they've already had one incident. It will be more. And the problem you're going to have getting vehicles through that, emergency vehicles up and trying to evacuate the people out, you will end up with a significant problem up there. If you think that the Almeda fire was brutal, this one would be worse because you're talking about terrain that's in the urban interface. And with that, there's been so many nightmares in the urban interface, been on a few of them myself, and that will be a problem for you. So I don't know what the Planning Commission plans on doing with that, but I guarantee you will be, somebody will realize that they made a mistake at some time on this. So anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Evening, Commissioners. I'm Mark Bartholomew, counsel for the applicant, and I came up here to say I agree with Greg Hathaway on one thing, at least, and that is the requested open record period. So I wasn't sure when would be the right time to talk about that, so I chose now so I don't forget about it. But I did want to clarify, in his proposed third open record period, it said applicant, if requested, may submit final argument. We do request that. We want final argument as we're entitled to under Oregon revised statutes. So please take note of that. And when that part is settled, I'm assuming that's how the open record will be. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, did you have a comment? Nope. Okay. All right. Okay. Do we have more?
The next 5, I have Erickson Barrard, Dusty Wynn, Julie Calvo, Vern Underwood, and Andrew Montrubio. Excuse me.
I first would like to, I'd like to submit to be on record the petition with the 360 signatures that we have from the neighborhood, that it be entered on record. Dusty Wynn, 4401 Vista Point Drive. I know this is redundant, but I want to say it again, that throughout this process, both the city and the applicant have relied on the same three phrases: reviewed by fire, meets fire code, and streets meet city standards. Those phrases are being treated as safety, and they are not. I'm concerned, and it's objectionable, that we are using an analysis from 2003 and 2007 to address safety and traffic standards. Since the Almeda fire of 2020, Oregon has acknowledged that wildlife behavior has changed and that existing codes are incomplete. Repeating meets codes does not answer the real question. Can people get out safely when it matters? The absence of codes does not equal the absence of danger. This matters because the city is being asked to approve a 199-unit apartment development at the top of a high-risk wildlife area served by small constrained roads without an evacuation time or evacuation capacity analysis. The question was asked earlier. Under Medford Municipal Code 10.461, the city must evaluate traffic safety, and subsection 10.461(5)R does give you the authority to ask and call out a safety-based review. While wildfire evacuation is not named explicitly, for a project of this size and location, evacuation capacity is plainly a traffic safety issue. That analysis does not exist in the record. Relying solely on minimum code compliance while declining to evaluate evacuation safety after years of devastating fires and loss of life is not responsible governance. This project also relies on assumptions that are not guaranteed. Emergency-only roads are treated as evacuation routes without operational details, and other routes depend on future development with no timeline and no requirement they exist before occupancy. This is approving density today while hoping safety materializes later. I do have a question for the Fire Marshal Farrington, if that would be okay.
Is that
How do I do that?
So
Okay.
normally we ask the question now and staff talks at the end of comments. So we're not bringing a staff member up for each individual. So yeah,
Okay.
definitely get your question on the record. and
The
we'll-
question would be to Fire Marshal Farrington, are you confident that during a wildfire evacuation, you can get all the necessary fire emergency apparatus up to Mountaintop Village via Bordeaux Drive and Deer Ridge Road while residents are simultaneously evacuating in their vehicles using those same roads? I recommend we get an analysis for clearance times, vehicle throughput, worst-case wildlife scenario, and plan how residents evacuate while fire apparatus is trying to access the site at the same time. I also recommend future emergency access routes be built before occupancy of the mountaintop apartments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Erickson Baird, 4405 Vista Point Drive. Thank you, commissioners, for your time and consideration in this matter. I'm not here to argue that Medford does not need housing. However, Medford's adopted housing production strategy calls for improving homeownership access, including moderate income households, not just additional rentals. This proposal moves away from that direction and away from middle housing. The approved 2017 Mountaintop Plan included 132 townhouse-style middle housing units. The 2025 proposal replaces that with 199 apartments in 11 buildings along the ridgeline overlooking our city. This is a major change in form, housing type that is not consistent with the 2017 plan or safety expectations in the event of an emergency. Under MLDC 10.190, you may approve a PUD revision only if it meets the criteria, including a mixture of housing types, and that any modified standards, quote, will not materially impair the function, safety, efficiency of the circulation system, or the development as a whole. This site is zoned SFR 4. In that zone, the city generally allows middle housing, such as duplexes, triplexes, etc. Because those forms fit better next to single-family neighborhoods. Large apartment-style buildings aren't allowed unless a PUD is used to make that exception. This shows that Medford's intent is to meet housing needs with middle housing first, not by defaulting to big apartment blocks. This is also a hillside, wildfire-relevant area with evacuation concerns. Medford standards tighten flexibility where wildfire and steep slope risks exist, reinforcing that life, safety, and context matter more in this situation, and that minimum requirements and empty future promises to improve are not sufficient. My request is straightforward. Deny this revision as proposed, or require a revised plan that returns to a middle housing development, designed consistent with Medford's adopted policies and the MLDC 10.190 criteria, especially the requirement not to impair safety or circulation. Commissioners, given those adopted goals and code standards, why would we replace middle housing with a larger apartment project that concentrates risk on constrained hillside? Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Julie Calvo, and I reside at 1030 Fawn Hill Circle in Medford. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. I have some still shots that I would like for you, the commissioners, to review. Do I give those? I'll put one here for them to see. No, I have one. I just don't know how to make it. Yeah, thank you. I'm before you this evening to address MMC 10.198. These are still shots from the video that you were shown earlier. The scale and form are not visually compatible with the existing Vista Point neighborhood and risk impairing the use and enjoyment of the existing residential properties. I listened earlier as the representative from CSA talked about trees and shrubs being able to shield the homes. These apartment buildings are 35 feet to the plat. They're 42 feet to the roof. And that's before retaining walls, before what they need to do to build it up on the hillside. For this neighborhood, this is off of Bordeaux, it's not possible to make it blend and be consistent. The proposed apartment buildings are large, looming, and institutional in appearance and much more reminiscent of barracks. We ask that you go back to the 2017 plan, which was visually compatible, enabled middle housing, and blended well with the development. I thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you.
My name is Vern Underwood. I live at 4881 Bordeaux Avenue. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak. I don't have a prepared statement. I had a couple comments, or maybe more of a question, as to why we're spending time talking about the 2003 approved PUD and its relation to this one, when in fact, isn't this only about changing the 2017 approved PUD to this new configuration? And so I propose we stick with the 2017. And the other thing I haven't heard any discussion of is parking spaces, because we built on Bordeaux Avenue in 2017, moved in 2018, so we've lived there 8 years. And in the last couple of years, the developer has put in four duplexes in what was originally going to be single-family homes. So that was a shift. And single-family homes, two-car garage, large driveway. And since that time, we've had a lot of cars parking up and down Bordeaux Avenue. And so I don't know how many parking spaces are proposed. With 199 units, there's at least 400, 500, maybe 800 cars that have to have a parking space somewhere in this development. We're 4 people living in our house, and we have 5 cars among us. So I haven't heard anything about parking spaces. So I just wanted to add that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Andrew Monterubio. I live on 1532 Nottingham Circle. Rather than go into everything that's been explained, I would like to just state something that I have yet to hear. In the wintertime, especially February, March, we've seen significant snow up in the hills. And in the years prior, including last year, the snow was so significant that we were unable to leave our house at 1532 for a number of days, as there are not snowplows implemented in that area or in that neighborhood. So I would like to hear on how that will be implemented for this in particular, as it will be a real problem for these residents and a danger. So I appreciate your time, and I agree with my fellow residents with all of their key points. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Kaylee.
Tina Tarbin, Virginia Cannon, William Patterson, Cindy Patterson, Robert Schaefer, and Jacob McCowan. This would be the last 6.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Tina Tarbin. I live at 4500 Deer Ridge Drive. First time attending a commissioners meeting, and I am here because at the last meeting, when we expressed our concerns about the evacuation plans and how people would safely get out of the neighborhood, the response was that wasn't the builder's concern, it was the planning commission and the fire commission. So I know a lot of my neighbors are here because we're very concerned as to how this is going to be taken into consideration for our safety in evacuating the neighborhood. I've heard a lot of comments about the previous plans, and the question becomes, when do we learn from the disasters that have happened in other areas where poor planning was done? We have the ability to plan for this so that people can get out safely. I'm extremely concerned. I've had family members that have experienced. Speaking to my cousin, as she is living in the neighborhood below the Palisades, saying she can't leave because the people can't get out of the Palisades. So she's stuck in her home and she's hoping fire isn't gonna come to her. My other family members lost their home in Altadena. They were happy to have gotten out with their lives. And these are cities that have lots more streets than 2 coming out of one neighborhood. I respectfully ask for you guys to decline this until evacuation plans can be put in place so that we can sleep at night and not have to worry about what's going to happen when we need to leave our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, my name is Virginia Cannon. I'm on 4556 Park Ridge Drive. I live on the corner of Bordeaux and Park Ridge. There's a lot that was said tonight that I agree with, that I have deep concerns with. One, that I live on the corner of Park Ridge and Bordeaux, which was one of the streets, my understanding, is designated as an egress. And there's just no way a car is going to, an emergency truck is going to make it up there. A lot of the cars park on the street because their driveways are so steep because we're all in heels. So a lot of them park on the driveway or the street. And when I'm leaving my house and I have to scoot over my car, if someone's coming this way, I have to move over to give them room to go, because a lot of the cars park along the side of the street where the church is. And I don't see how people can evacuate when they're trying to use the same street as the fire trucks are trying to go. They're on the same street. So I'm asking that they look for a different egress. And what has not mentioned, but I would like to say, is that this is a community and there's a lot of families with a lot of children, and they use that church down at the bottom of Park Ridge for recreation. Families take their kids there. I've seen them do fly casting. I've seen them during the summertime. The church gets out and they do the slip and slide during this winter time. They, because there's a big hill, they use that hill for going on sleds. 199 units is a lot of cars. There's no resources up where we live. There's no car, there's no bus. You cannot take a bike up there. That's very steep. I mean, really, it is. So I would ask that an independent study be done on traffic, not to use the one from 2017. Use the actual one that takes into consideration that it's 199 units, because they're all going to be driving cars. Do an evacuation study so that we know that when they do build them up there, that at night, I don't have to worry, because I'll tell you, it's a very scary thing when you're in a fire. You can't breathe, you can't see, you are disorientated. It is an extremely scary thing to evacuate during a fire. I can't stress it enough, and I do not understand why this is being presented as something that's workable when it's not. I also would like to ask that you please go back to approving the townhouses, the original study that we all agreed on. I want to make it clear that I'm not against intent, and I'm not against stopping development. I want to make sure that our neighborhood is safe, so that when they build things like this, we're assured that we have a place to escape, that we don't have to worry about being caught in a fire or being burned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm William Patterson, and I would just like to say that I concur with all the statements, questions, and descriptions of why this revision should be denied by by city planning. I'd also like to say that my wife and I went up Bordeaux or Vista Point. I don't travel the neighborhood, so I don't know the streets very well. And when we got up to the top there, I saw the 7 duplexes that had been built. And I was very disappointed, if not appalled, at what I saw, especially the one that has a big electrical box where the street driveway should allow a driver to drive up into his garage. There's an electrical box in front of that garage door. I could only say that the lack of thought, disrespect, or total disrespect and disgusting display there
would only be a precursor to what this project and 19 apartment buildings built out of T111 that'll warp in the first year will look like, especially when it doesn't fit the architecture or the way people build their houses up there to the way they do it now. So sorry for the lack of preparation.
Thank you.
Mr. Patterson, before you leave, what was your address?
4268 Tamarack Drive.
4268 Tamarack. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
My name is Robert Schaefer, and I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to have a discussion with you. My wife and I, Carolyn, live on 4817 Bordeaux Avenue. We've lived there since 2011. We're natives of this area. We've been here for a number of years, and so we're quite familiar with a lot of different areas and growth patterns of this particular area. I had sent a letter in, and my goal in that particular letter was to tie our concerns to the specific Oregon statewide goals, the 19 goals. And I think a lot of them have been covered pretty well here tonight, such as goal number 7, which is the public safety and wildfire evacuation. Goal number 12, which is transportation and traffic impact. Just for a side note, if you ever want to watch Oswego Drag Raceway, try watching a 12-wheeler come up the hill with 12 yards of dirt to a construction zone up Bordeaux Avenue. It's exhilarating at times. And the neighborhood compatibility goals number 4 and 14, which I agree with Mr. Hathaway. The original design PUD intent does not fall within those patterns, and that the density is inconsistent with the surrounding SFR4 zoning. These are all tangible, very tangible things that we need to look at. There's one intangible thing that I don't think has been addressed. Maybe it has. I haven't seen anything on it, and I will apologize if I take up the time on that. But that's goal number 5 of the Oregon statewide planning goals, and that's protection of endangered species. I bring this up because in 1942, a young lady by the name of Laura Gintler, who was 18-year-old and an amateur biologist, was cycling throughout southern Oregon. During her ride, Ms. Gintler noticed a plant that was later described as a new species by Dr. Helen M. Gilkey. The new species was later named after the Gintlers and was called the Gintler filaria. This plant is designed or considered one of the rarest native plants in the world. So rare, in fact, that the 1999 December that the Fish and Wildlife Services added the plant to the federally endangered species list. This red lily is found almost exclusively in isolated populations in the local oak woodlands and transition zones in southern Oregon. The East Medford Hills and Jacksonville area are known habitat for that particular species. We have addressed the aspect that they're going to continue keep some oak trees and put some shrubbery in there, but that does not address the impact on the habitat zone itself, which is the acreage up there at the top of the hill. We're concerned that this particular construction will impact that habitat negatively. And we would ask, as a professional biologist, survey being concluded, and specifically during the April through June flower window, as well as, if not, we would request that the application should be stayed until one is completed or the application is denied in total. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And we have one more.
I'd like to thank the Commission for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Jacob McCowan. I reside at 4840 Bordeaux Avenue. I actually back to the property. So I oppose property development for 2 reasons. One was the compatibility issue based on MLDC 10.1981C. Earlier, somebody asked how high were the original townhomes. They were 23 feet high. So we are now looking at, from the perspective of homeowners, 42.5-foot high buildings from base to rooftop. So placing those 42.5-foot structures creates a prominent ridgeline visual wall that is inconsistent with the existing adjacent developments. The proposal is incompatible with the visual identity and character of the existing development portions of the Vista Point PUD. And if you want to address compatibility, all we have to do is look to the 2017 decision where it was approved. In 2017, the PUD approval, the applicant noted the townhouse configuration is more adaptable to the terrain than the 3-story condominiums, reducing the number and height of retaining walls and required grading. Additionally, the two-story building height is more in keeping with the surrounding single-family residences. As a result, the Planning Commission voted to approve the change, stating that the reduced building height and flat roofs proposed will cut the visual impacts of the structures. The second reason for my proposal to the development is MLDC 10.190 subsection 4B, Roman numeral 3. The commission is being asked to find that safety is met based on a secondary emergency access road through the neighboring Red Tail Heights development that does not currently exist, has no realistic time frame for development, and is not under the control of this PUD. A future road does not mitigate present risk, and relying on the unbuilt road through Red Tail Heights constitutes an impermissible deferral of a finding of fact. Without the road in place today, the function of the circulation system is materially impaired because it creates a single point of failure. Channeling evacuation traffic for over 300 vehicles from Forest Ridge and Mountaintop through a single non-traffic controlled intersection at Park Ridge and Bordeaux Avenue creates a functional collapse of the system during an emergency. A system with no redundancy in a high hazard zone is by definition functionally impaired. As such, the development violates MLDC 10.190 subsection 4B, Roman numeral 3, which states that the proposal will not materially impair the function, safety, or efficiency of the circulation system or the development as a whole. Increasing the density in the hazard zone creates inefficiency in emergency response. While statewide Goal 7 is implemented through local code, the definition of safety in MLDC 10.190 must be interpreted in the context of the factual record. The site is in a high hazard wildlife urban interface zone per the Oregon Wildfire Risk Assessment and is subject to the Medford Natural Hazards Mitigation Plan's warning regarding drought and fire. Wildfires rank number 1 in the top tier of hazards in the NMHP, followed by drought. As written in the mitigation plan, drought conditions also increase the risk of wildland fires, thus threatening the safety of the growing number of residents residing in wild urban interface areas. Medford's greatest risk from drought is the heightened risk of wildland urban interface fire in the eastern urban growth boundary area, which is exactly where the Mountaintop development is located. Furthermore, the traffic impact analysis metrics only address convenience, not safety. By increasing density in a known hazard zone without securing a guaranteed construction secondary egress, the applicant has failed to provide substantial evidence that the safety of the development is not materially impaired. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, Kaylee, we have no other, okay. Any additional comments by planning?
So I just want to make sure that there was nobody else that wanted to speak. There is. Come on up.
What?
Please introduce yourself, give your address.
My name is Dan Betchart. I reside at 4334 Vista Point Drive with my wife Stacy. I agree with all my neighbors, all the concerns. One thing though that has come to mind, I just kind of thought about, I've worked for a local fencing contractor for 15 years, and in this region, something that we have to go through nonstop calls every year is we're coming up to shift posts. The ground is constantly shifting up there. We're coming up there and moving posts, straightening them back up. I'm just curious if there's been, what's the word I'm looking for here?
A geotechnical report?
Say again?
A geotechnical report?
The geotechnical report, and also if that has been taken into consideration. That's just a concern of mine with that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Steve Sabin. I live at 680 Forest Ridge Drive. I built a new house there in the last year and recently moved in. I share the concerns that have been expressed to this commission leading up to this point. As I look at the map and I look at the ingress and egress, I believe there are legitimate safety concerns. If you look at exiting the entire Forest Ridge area, there are really only 3 places that can be done. One is at Vista Point, and there's one at each end of Tamarack. So you have 3 places where people can basically exit that area. I believe that if this development were to proceed, it should be fed by something more appropriate to a main artery as opposed to surface streets through the neighborhood. And I think a proper traffic safety study has to be conducted. Right now, as residents, we're being asked to compare vaporware to vaporware. We're being told that a study was done in 2003 and 2017 and 2025, but none of that's real. None of that traffic is real. It's all imaginary. What we know and feel today as residents is the traffic that actually goes by our home. And so we have 11 buildings. We have 199 dwelling units, up 50% from 132. At bare minimum, that's 2 cars per dwelling unit, so 400 cars. And I don't see any way that that can safely exit that area in the event of an emergency. And I also think there needs to be a traffic study that shows what is the impact to people who live there today. It doesn't matter to us what the impact is of a 2017 study against a 2025 study. What matters is what is the traffic going to be in the future based on what is it actually today. So I think there should actually be a benchmark of measurements of what is the traffic currently, and then a study of what will the traffic be. And we can't assume that it's going to equally split. I believe the lion's share of that traffic is going to come down to Deer Ridge. Most of those cars are going to turn right to go down Vista Point to hit McAndrews, and a few of those cars are going to turn left to go down Vista Point toward Tamarack. And I think those traffic studies need to be taken very seriously and conducted as quickly as possible. I don't think there's time in 30 days for this commission to make a fully informed decision, so I also think that that date needs to be pushed out so that proper studies can be done. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
If there's nobody else, Mr. Chair, I think next would be to see if the commissioners had any question for staff.
Well, yeah, or first of all, does staff have any additional planning or fire have anything additional, or engineering have anything additional to add?
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. Tanner Farrington, Fire Marshal for the Fire Department. Since there were questions, I'll go ahead and start. I took notes, so I'm going to try to approach this the best I can to try to answer this how pretend that I don't know anything and I'm somebody that lives in this area. So I'm going to do my best job to answer the questions, address the concerns. I want to be clear ahead of time. I'm going to do this kind of in 2 parts. The first part will be what I know are the minimum requirements that I can look at, that I have the authority to look at, and that I think you all have the authority to look at. I also want to address some of the concerns, because I think there were some good ones, to at least acknowledge and talk about, even if you all don't have the authority to address them. So I'm going to do my best to kind of deviate those. So first of all, I want to say it's really interesting to see the amount of awareness and concern that our community has. That awareness was earned through some tough situations, including Almeda, Deer Ridge, and people that we've had move into our community that have experienced wildfire in other places. So there's other fire marshals in other jurisdictions that have to work really diligently to get the community to understand some of the wildfire risks. So I commend the community for their awareness and expressing their concerns really well. So state law says that adopts the fire code. So we adopt it locally. There's also a state adopted fire code. We have some small amendments to it that aren't really significant to this project. So what I'm responsible to look for land development projects is primarily access and water supply. Oregon Fire Code requires 2 access points when certain conditions are met. This project does provide 2 separate access points and therefore meets the requirements of the fire code. Water supply, we worked with the Water Commission and the applicant to come up with locations for hydrants and then vaults and fire department connections that would support and boost the sprinkler systems that will be required for these apartment buildings. So From our initial review, from our reviews, it appears that access and water supply, according to the requirements of the fire code, is met. So those are kind of the minimums. Now I want to kind of go into some of the comments that have been brought up and kind of expand on that a little bit. So an EVAC study, some really good comments, and I share some of the concerns. One of the questions I think was, am I confident that simultaneous response and evacuation would go well in this area? I can't say confidently that it would go well. Wildfires are really, really challenging. And I've done a ton of research on this topic. It's something that's interesting to me, and I've tried to find. There's a lot of attention to how we construct buildings to be wildfire resilient and how we take care of the space around buildings. There's very limited studies and information available on modeling evacuations, and even less so on designing a neighborhood for evacuation and then seeing how it goes in a real life scenario. You have to plan for a type of wildfire. Alameda was completely different from Deer Ridge. 40 mile an hour, basically sustained winds, 50, 60 mile an hour gusts. Those are unique and horrible conditions that make evacuation, especially simultaneous evacuation and response, really, really challenging. So you have to know the type of fire, wind direction, be able to calculate the width of the roads, number of access points, number of people. There's information that says that if you can provide early evacuation notification, which we have done since Alameda, that was a significant challenge with Alameda, is letting people know in specific areas that they needed to evacuate. That was a responsibility that we as a city did not have. We have since then created the capability to, independent of the county, be able to identify which zones need to evacuate. That early notification will make a huge difference in the ability to evacuate in the event of a wildfire or other natural hazard. That helps, but it's still not completely predictable. If we get late notification because there's rapid fire progression, it gets really challenging to estimate and identify how long it's going to take to evacuation. Additionally, as I think was mentioned, I don't think we have any standards that say there's a requirement to evaluate evacuation, and even if there was, I don't know that there's great information out there. That said, I think it's something important to consider. And then just in some discussions, some fire safety concerns had gotten brought up. One of the things that was mentioned is, the number of vehicles coming out of this development. I think it was mentioned by the applicant that based on middle housing, if we went back to some of the single family, I think the indication was that maybe it could be, ADUs could be added. I don't know if that's actually the case. So if we went back to single family, if some of those lots could have ADUs added or be subdivided and add additional lots, but that is a consideration. That would be more potential units and could kind of offset or add to the number of trips that we'd be looking at for that simultaneous evacuation response. I know there's been concerns expressed on apartment buildings versus the 2017 approval. With the taller buildings, 3-story buildings, it creates a little bit more challenge for rescue. The access roads would be required to be 26-foot minimum in front of the building so that there's additional room for us to use a ladder to access people on the upper stories and access the roof. Outside of that, these apartment buildings would be required to be sprinklered. That's a benefit in wildfire risk areas. So if there's an interior ignition, the theory is it's more likely that that sprinkler system would likely control that fire until we could get there and finish the job, and it's less likely that an interior fire would go to exterior. Those sprinkler systems don't do anything for an exterior fire attacking the exterior of a building. They're not strong enough to slow down that progression, but it does help take care of or limit that risk of an interior ignition threatening additional structures. With the increased density, there's also added benefit of having greater distance between buildings, greater building separation, which could be a benefit as well. And then I think it's worth pointing out that the applicant has shown interest in looking at defensible space options and construction materials and methods for the buildings to reduce wildfire risk or make those buildings more resilient for ember ignition. And if those buildings are less likely to ignite, they're less likely to contribute additional embers and fire spread to other buildings. I want to point out that it's great that they have expressed that interest. Let's see, I think that covers most of it. There was another question about water pressure. So I figured I would just provide the context that the minimum requirement for hydrants is a given flow at 20 PSI. So that's the minimum flow. We take that pressure and we boost it with pumps to have additional pressure for firefighting operations. So the indications that we received from Water Commission is that flow and pressure would be adequate. The required flow is reduced for buildings that have sprinkler systems. There's a significant reduction in the required flow with the theory that the sprinkler systems are going to limit the fire and therefore we wouldn't need as much water to control it. So I want to address that point. I think one other item, there was a discussion on the landscaping and potentially shrubs. Landscape architects look at different vegetation and, see one's prettier, one's taller. I look at it as fuel, different types of fuels, taller fuels, shorter fuels. So especially if the oak trees are going to remain, there's ways to separate the lower level fuels, the ground fuels, from those taller fuels. So minimizing the amount of shrubs would actually be a benefit because then you don't have ladder fuels. You don't have a connection between those lower grass fuels and the trees to contribute to fire spread. And it makes it easier to keep some of those trees and have that visual separation and minimize the impact of those. So I think that hopefully addresses most of the comments. And if there's any other questions, I'm happy to come back up. I'll just hang out here.
Thank you, Tanner. Do we have any questions? Oh, yes, sir.
With the PUD plan up, regarding that southwest access, the one going into Evening Ridge, the agent had previously noted that, if the commission were to consider that paved versus gravel, does that have an impact to kind of the emergency function operationally?
Thank you. I meant to mention that. So we actually discussed this with the client. Our goal, similar to buildings, is get people out, not necessarily get people in. So if there's a desire to restrict public access to that, our request was at least make it to where people can get out. Another important consideration is these are all pretty steep access roads, not only for people that may need to get out, especially during wintertime, but for us to get in. Those paved roads get pretty slick in the wintertime with ice and snow. So we're really happy to have potentially a like 3/4 minus gravel road.
And then obviously it's been noted more than once, but in comparing it to the previous PD plan in 2017, I think the increase of units obviously is being addressed. But with the change of housing product, I guess the combination and maybe even the layout of all the parking, would you say that would be a material change to the performance of emergency and safety?
I don't know. I think that's probably a better question for more the traffic engineer types. parking or limited parking can create access challenges for us. So if there's not enough parking, parking ends up spilling over. A lot of times for apartment complexes, if they're surrounded by neighborhoods, it's less of an issue. If it's underparked, typically people will find a place to park. So, and that can create access challenges for us through the site. I'm not sure that that would have as much of an impact on the surrounding areas unless some of that parking spills out onto the surrounding roads. So other than the access to this site, I'm not sure how much of an impact it would have. The difference between this housing type versus the other, the only point that I was kind of getting at is the applicant potentially made a fair point that if it goes back to some of the single family with the middle housing, if it's legal to add ADUs, that could bump up the number of units.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Your comments have been, we have one down there? Oh,
I'm sorry, it took me a minute to.
no, that's all right. I was just going to congratulate him for giving us some good
There's
information.
been some comments about going back to the 2017 plan. From a fire safety, is that an improvement over the plan that's being proposed?
I don't think there's a significant difference between this plan and the previous plan. And this plan meets fire code. As far as the surrounding roads, and this is, I forgot to mention this. So we look first at the subdivision or the plan project. This plan project on its own meets fire code and is relatively consistent with the previous development. And my understanding is because we've got previous approvals from a while ago, unless there's something that's substantially or significantly different, there's not a lot more that can be required, especially for the existing roads that this will feed into. Ideally, the development to the west that has a connection, once the development to the west of this has that connection, that'll add another connection point that will improve egress out of this overall area. But the way it stands here, I don't think I have the legal ability to recommend or that you all have the legal ability to deny the project based on the way the access is provided right now.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions down this way? No? Okay. Anything to add from planning? Or, engineering has something. Okay. Huh? Oh, Doug. Oh, Doug is next. What?
Before we finish with staff, I've got something.
Yeah, no,
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. I'm Carl McNair, the Transportation Manager with Public Works Engineering. Excuse me. Wanted to address some of the comments and discussion from tonight regarding the requirements for a TIA. So the PUD that was approved in 2003 had different rules than we have today for traffic impact analyses. But that approval vested a certain number of trips to this development. And we've looked at that at the 2017 approval and then again at this, and the number of units being proposed is essentially, the trips generated from those are essentially the same as what was originally approved. Even though it is more units being proposed today, the multifamily units actually on a per unit basis generate less traffic than a single family home. Typically an apartment would have fewer people living in it than a single family home. And we have studies to back this up. The ITE trip generation manual is a national standard that we use, and it gathers studies conducted all over the United States and compiles that data to come up with averages, average trip generations for different housing types. It looks at urban versus suburban developments. So using the appropriate categories for this development, we project that on average, this should generate a slightly less traffic than what was approved in 2017. Also, as far as if a traffic impact analysis were required, what TIAs do, they distribute trips onto the traffic system and they look for problems based on what our code defines as the level of service that the city intends to provide, which is level of service D in Medford. And you know, in the immediate area of this, the traffic is going to take the same route that was in that previous 2017 approval. It's going to go onto local streets of Bordeaux, Vista Point, Park Ridge, and then onto McAndrews Road, which is a major arterial road, and distribute onto Hillcrest and the rest of the system from there. McAndrews, Hillcrest, those major streets that feed this are built out, and it's unlikely that we would see problems in the immediate area based on our criteria. We don't have criteria for local street intersections, local streets, and so those aren't typically part of those analyses. I did want to say on the local streets, Bordeaux, Vista Point, Park Ridge, those are all designed as standard residential streets, not what we call minor residential streets. So that does mean they're 36 feet wide, as one gentleman pointed out tonight, and or 36 feet wide streets are designed to have 2 7-foot parking lanes and 2 11-foot travel lanes, which are standard widths for both those things. The one other note I had was on snow removal. So in the last 4 years or so, Public Works has been purchasing snow plows as well as de-icing equipment and has been expanding our abilities there. I can't say what that means for any specific area of town, but in general, Public Works is expanding our snow removal capabilities.
But Carl, just to clarify on that one, these are private streets, so they would have private snow removal. It would not be public snow removal.
Correct, yeah. Bordeaux, the public streets around could have public snow removal, but not on site.
Okay, thank you. Oh, hang on, any other questions? Yes, sir.
So, Carl, I think you're kind of heading down this path, but I just wanted to be clear. So a traffic study would not speak to kind of the behaviors or the volumes associated with like a wildfire event. Is that fair to say?
Correct, yeah, that is not part of our typical analysis.
Okay. And the letters that were submitted, a number of them referenced a kind of an emergency exit situation study or something like that. Is that something you're familiar with? Is that seen ever, or is that?
I'm not familiar with them. I've never seen one within the city of Medford.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Carl.
Thank you.
Okay. Any more planning? Oh, we got another. Yes, sir.
I forgot to mention something. A couple things, actually. So a couple things since to address your comment. There have been locations that have done studies. California, for example, there's some locations where they've taken some sort of wildfire, so a wildfire event, and then tried to estimate evacuation, assuming early evacuation notification. It's out there, it's complicated, and I don't know of any scenarios where it's been proven that that's been used to design a development and that it's proven successful during a wildfire event. There's starting to be more attention to it, but it's not there yet. So I think it's a really important topic. I'm not sure how even if there was a requirement to do it, that it's even possible or realistic, especially because you have to choose the type of wildfire event. So that was one item. I also wanted to point out, not only for this project, but potentially other projects, and this is potentially a challenge, but parking restrictions could always be added or considered. It creates a challenge of the normal everyday. People are always looking for parking. If there becomes a significant concern for simultaneous evacuation response, which is certainly a legitimate concern and something that we worry about, that is something that could be looked at by I think it's the Transportation Commission or the Parking Committee. And then the other thing I wanted to say is these interior private access roads, they will be parking restricted. So even though they're narrow, they will be parking restricted. So it's not going to be the same situation where there's people parking along these access roads and then it's just one vehicle at a time. So we're hopeful that that will help contribute to simultaneous evacuation response.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Chair.
Oh, you have a question?
Since we're making staff go back and forth, I had a question for Carl.
Carl, you gotta be quicker.
I know, it always came to my mind. Sorry. Well, this is related to the Evening Ridge. Is there concerns if it went to full access rather than restricted on that southwest?
On the southwest.
The one that's going into.
The one that's gonna be emergency
the
only.
gravel road, if that became a full access.
Full paved road.
From a traffic standpoint, there's no concerns with that. I believe that was the plan in 2017, actually.
Okay, good. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're ready for it. I hope.
All right, we're going to wrap it up here, and then I think we have some rebuttal time for
Yes.
our agent. Oh, and I think Mr. Minton's going to have something too. So I wanted to talk a minute about a couple of questions that were asked of me. One was the building height. I can't remember his name. I'm sorry. The speaker that talked about the building height was correct. The 2017 plan had a range of like 20 to 25 feet for the duplexes. And as we're measuring, as the code tells us to measure, we're looking at 35 feet for the proposed units. I wanted to talk about the duplex units that have been constructed in those 5 lots on Bordeaux. That is, those were permissible via the state's middle housing rules. The state allows or requires cities to allow duplex units in master planned communities like Vista Point that were approved prior to 2021. So that's how those got there. There are 5 of them, so 5 duplexes, and that was included in the 209 unit count. So the apartments are 199 units in 11 buildings, plus the 10 duplex units equals the 209 units totaled. There was a question about whether you could condition additional landscaping. I did take a look at the code. It points us over to our Site Plan Architectural Commission standard authorities that they have. And so yes, you can when you're looking to do additional buffering. Our typical buffer yard standard is 10 feet. So I'm not sure, those buildings are so much farther than 10 feet from the adjacent property lines. I'm not confident that additional landscaping would be beneficial. If that's what you're trying to accomplish is buffering, I'm not sure that that would be useful in this particular case.
But just on that point, since this is zoned SFR4 and the houses around it are SFR4, a buffer wouldn't be required anyway.
That's correct. There's no buffering required. I was just saying that, I mean, that's our standard if one was required, but again, it's so the buildings are, I mean, the access road that's shown on the south side there is 20 feet. So that's, 50, 60 feet from the adjoiners. So I'm not confident that additional plantings would be useful there. Also to the landscaping plan, when I reviewed it, it talks about the on-site landscaping, talks about the parking lot landscaping, all those things. It also talks about the additional landscaping that's required for the stormwater facilities. I just assumed that the rest of the open area was intended to be open and left native, so that's why I didn't comment on that. There was a question about the number of parking spaces that are proposed. The plan has 369 spaces for the 199 units, which is within the range. The code does not allow, it has a limit of how much parking can be required, again, from our friends at the state. And I think that that's all that I had. I think those are the questions that you had for me. Unless I missed something, please let me know.
Yeah. Down this way. Go ahead.
I think this was mentioned earlier, but I just want to be sure. I understand the applicant is asking the commission to approve the design standards. Does the commission have the option to punt that responsibility to spec?
Yes.
And that is something we can include in a motion?
Yes.
later?
Yes. So I'm glad you asked that question, Commissioner. So the Planning Commission has the authority to do a couple different things. You can shift site plan and architectural details to our Site Plan Architectural Commission. You can also send them to your planning director for review and approval. I think I mentioned that the city recently adopted clear and objective design standard for multifamily housing. Those have been satisfied, so I'm not confident what the benefit would be to taking that through another public hearing process when there cannot be a different outcome.
So we would just have to be clear if we do want it to go not have the commission approve that item, we just have to be clear which entity we direct
That's
it
correct.
to.
So that's correct. So you would need to specify what it is that you want, whoever you're delegating your authority to, specifically what it is that you would want them to review. So I heard earlier the landscaping plan. If you wanted us to look again more closely at architecture, which we do anyways at the building permits, that's your discretion.
Because it does look like in the Exhibit A that's got the conditions of approval, there are a number of statements as far as like the HVAC and the
That's correct.
Trash receptacles, like those state who will be reviewing those. We could just make a blanket, like, planning director approval on the design standards as a whole. Or we just need to spell it out and be very clear in whatever the decision is.
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anything else for me?
Did you have one?
Yeah, sorry. So, the PUD approval has a certain number of units approved. That's part of what the revision is asking for, right? To change the number of approved units in the mountaintop portion. Is that correct?
Correct.
So, given all the new rules and stuff that the state's put on us, is that binding? Like the question of ADUs and different things have come up. Is that something that we can police? So like if some, say they built the 2017 or 19 plan, whatever it was, and then people started wanting to do ADUs or other things like that, you could turn them down because of the unit cap in the PUD that was approved?
No, actually could not. So so looking at the plan on the left that has all those yellow lots that were single family units, under the rules, under the ADU rules, well, number one, ADUs don't count for density.
Okay.
It would, it's additional lot coverage depending on how they're designed. But no, they're totally permissible. Wherever you have a detached unit, you can have an ADU.
So said a different way, they're allowed on SFAR lots, they're allowed to do duplexes and triplexes
and
whatever else.
fourplexes.
So in that scenario, would those units, they would count, and if they hit their ceiling, they couldn't build any more?
No.
Or
I don't think so.
Or the state would say you can do whatever you want because we want more housing?
I think the latter. So, I think there was some. I personally, I'm not confident that I would have counted the duplex units as 2 units because the PUD would approve those as single-family units. The state has required us to allow to double the density. So I think that the applicant was generous in acknowledging those in 10 units instead of 5, which is how I was thinking of them, because the way those rules work is you can exceed the maximum density. You have to hit the minimum, but you can exceed the maximum under those middle housing rules. But so your overall question. So could additional units be constructed beyond right now what's approved with the 2017 plan? No. The plan is the plan. That's why we're here. They want to amend the plan. So should the commission approve the 199 units, and could the applicant do something different? Yes, they could, but we'd get to do this exercise all over again. It needs to be substantially consistent with that decision.
I guess you lost me there. I mean, right now, the 2017 plans have been approved.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And it's got these SFAR lots around the perimeter.
Yes.
And so, if I understand correctly, regardless of the unit cap that's in that 2017 approval, if they want to do duplexes on all of those, they could, and it wouldn't, even if that meant there were 40 units over the cap, that would be allowed.
Under the middle housing rules, I think that's correct.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I
Sorry,
understood
I
that.
went way over there. Getting a little rummy now. Sorry,
No,
I'm
it's
sure
okay.
everybody is.
You're allowed. And then the second question was in relation to private roads and like the emergency access that's proposed.
Mm-hmm.
We still have like jurisdiction to require a certain level of maintenance, even though we're not doing it. I mean, like if there's a complaint or something, how does that work? If there's a complaint and somebody says, oh, they're not maintaining this,
Then it goes back to the property owner or project manager. So the way private streets are worked is that in the PUD, it requires the structural section to be equal to what the city would require. The idea is that you're not just going to throw 4 inches of asphalt over native and hope for the best.
Right.
So there is a structural section, and it has a longer life than 4 inches over native and hoping for the best.
but if somebody has an issue or whatever, then we code enforcement or somebody reaches out to ownership and says this needs to be dealt with.
Yeah, we would send them back to the owner.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Nope. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Eric, did you want to talk now or after?
I can either talk now or after we close, just as long as I get a chance to talk before the motion. Your call, Chair.
Okay, well, we're not motioning tonight anyway.
We're motioning to continue.
Oh, that's all right. But yes, sir. Okay. Would the applicant like to offer some rebuttal words?
Good evening again, for the record, Jay Harlan. Not a lot verbally. Sounds like we're going to do the 777, so most of the rebuttal we'll do in the last 7 days in writing. Really, I think, and also Kelly, the things that I had in my head that I might want to speak to, Kelly did a good job of talking about those. Building height, city has a code. We're not proposing a modification, so we're not proposing to go over that. And the parking, like you said, like we're actually pretty close to, there's parking pads in front of the garages, right, which some people will use and some people won't. With those though, we're almost like getting pretty close to the maximum that the city will even let us do. And we're at 1.5 space per unit without those. So I think for this project, the number with 61 bedroom units, I mean, I think it's parked pretty good, is what I would say. And then the only other thing is, I think, like I said, we'll handle the rest of the rebuttal in writing. And I just have a kind of a public service announcement for the neighborhood, having gone to this neighborhood for business almost every day since 2007. When it does snow, my recommendation would be to take Tamarack and not take Vista Point, because both of them are steep, but Tamarack is not nearly as steep as Vista Point, and I've seen quite a lot of excitement on those days. So that would be my suggestion.
You mean at Vista Point and McAndrews?
It is right in front of our office, between McAndrews and Brown Ridge. That little section, people, let's go with, struggle with mightily, but so for what it's worth.
All right. Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Do you have one more thing to add, or no?
I do, Mr. Chair. Thank you. I just wanted to thank everybody for coming tonight. You were very reasonable, and I appreciate all your attendance and your comments and your thoughtfulness. And with that, I will put up the motion
All right. Well,
for
we have
you.
to close the public hearing first.
So that's going to be part of what's happening here. So I want to explain this again, just,
All right.
just quickly if I could. So the request was to keep the record open as the statute allows and our own code acknowledges as well. So for the first 7 days, so till next Thursday at 5, anybody can submit anything that they want to submit. The second 7 days, anybody can respond to whatever was submitted the first 7 days. The third 7 days, the applicant did reserve, requested their ability to submit final written arguments. So by the end of February 12th, we'll have all the arguments in hand. And then we'll continue this, the meeting, we'll continue the item to Thursday, February the 26th. So that gives us, there's actually 5 weeks, which is kind of nice. We will print the agenda 1 week ahead as the law requires. So we'll print on February the 19th, and that'll be available on the web for those that are interested in following that track. So what we'll ask you to do would be to close the public hearing and leave the record open.
Okay. And then one other little item of business, mostly for the audience, that we do have additional business after this. So if you plan on leaving, please leave quietly. Okay, with that, we will hold the record open, but close the public hearing. And you have some wisdom talk.
I did. My job in this is always not to argue a particular policy standpoint, but just to help provide some guidance for the commission and some context for the audience in terms of making sure that whatever policy decision this commission makes is legally defensible. I have to add this caveat as an attorney that my job is A, to look at legal criteria, and B, to look at what the law is. I wish people were staying to hear this, but that's okay. What the law is and not what the law should be. And in this particular situation, there's a few things that I wanted to talk about in terms of what's been said here tonight. There was a lot of talk about that Almeda Fire changed everything, and from a human perspective, I live in this community too, from a human perspective, I agree more. When we're in court, it's a different analysis, and we have to go back to what was touched on previously, that when you're looking at a PUD amendment, you compare it to the last PUD approval, you look at what's changed. And in addition, for certain stuff like compatibility, you may look back to the 2003 PUD approval as additional context. And so in that, when talking about that, the evidence in the record is that there's more units, but based on the IT manual, which addresses how many people live in each unit, there's actually fewer people in this proposed plan than in the 2017 approval. There's fewer drivers in this proposed plan than in the 2017 PUD approval on average based on ITE data. And there's the same number of ingress and egress points. And the city, if this ends up in litigation, whether it's approved and people object to that, or whether it's denied and people object to that, the city's going to be a party to the litigation. That's a context where we have to look at whether that change allows for a determination. If there are fewer people there and it's denied on a basis of safety because there's not enough egress points under the existing approval, we would have more people living there with the same egress points. So denying on that basis would be a challenging position to defend in court if we end up there. Like I said, it's not my job to talk about what's ideal in terms of egress, if we could design the code anew, but in terms of litigation, if we're dealing with probably the same number of people or less, same number of egress points, it would be difficult to defend a denial based on concerns about whether egress points are sufficient for an emergency situation. There's been questions about an emergency evacuation plan. There's nothing in the municipal code requiring that. I understand the practical desire for one after Almeda Fire. it would be difficult to defend because it's such an unprecedented measure in Oregon, like we heard, it would be difficult to defend that as a required condition of approval based on our current code. And finally, I wanted to address visual compatibility. And likewise here, when we're talking about PUD modification, we're talking in part about compatibility when looking at prior approval as context. And here, I think it's also fair to look at the additional approval as context. The additional approval, the original intent of this PUD was having 11 three-story buildings in this location. The overall development had some multifamily condominiums at that time, and then single-family houses. This plan has 11 three-story buildings in that location. I understand the practical argument, well, they don't feel compatible with single-family homes, but that was the original intent of this development, and that was the approved plan from 2003 through 2017. So that is part of the context for compatibility, and as this commission weighs compatibility, I'd encourage them to look at that context and not just look at, well, there's multifamily here and what's already built so far is single family, because it was originally drawn up to be a mix of both in 2003. With that, those are the points I wanted to make. Like I said, I'm not here to argue for and against, just here to try and provide some guidance in terms of legally what is a strong basis for decision and what is less so.
Okay. Thank you, Eric. Okay. Do we have a draft motion to guide us? Or?
I do. Yes.
Oh, there it is.
Would you
okay.
like to hear it?
Well, we've already done the first part, so.
Mr. Chair.
Yes,
I
sir.
move to close the public hearing and keep the record open for 7 days per ORS 197.797 sub 6. For the first 7 days, anyone can submit written evidence, argument, or testimony due by 5 p.m. Thursday, January 29th, 2026. For the second 7 days, anyone may respond to new evidence presented by the first 7-day period due by 5 p.m. Thursday, February 5th, 2026. For the third 7 days, applicant, if requested, which they have, may submit final written arguments. No new evidence is allowed. Due by 5 p.m. Thursday, February 12th, 2026. This matter is continued to the Planning Commission meeting of Thursday, February 26, 2026 for deliberation and decision.
All right. Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion on this motion? Okay. Seeing none, Kaylee, can we have a roll call, please?
Jared Pulver,
Yes.
Larry Busco,
Yes.
David Culbertson,
Yes.
EJ McManus,
Yes.
Rachel Bennett,
Yes.
Mark McKechnie.
Yes.
We have 6 yeses.
Okay. Thank you. Motion passes. All right. Moving on to the last little bit of business here. And that concludes tonight's public hearings. And let's move on to presentation of reports. Transportation Commission, Mr. Pulver.
We're meeting next week, so we haven't met since our last meeting.
Okay, thank you. Site Plan and Architectural Commission, Ms. Aiken, can you stand in for Mr. Thomas?
I can. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Site Plan Architectural Commission last week, they ended up approving the Hyatt Park applications. Those are for the 490 or so apartment units on the southeasterly corner of Coal Mine and North Phoenix.
Oh, wow.
So that was successful. The Site Plan Architectural Commission did a really outstanding job on that project of helping the applicant understand that an additional street connection made a huge difference in the design of that project and the developability of the area in that particular expansion planning unit. So they did that, and then they also approved a site plan for a new Tractor Supply store. It's on Coker Butte and Clear Lake Avenue. Yeah.
Oh.
That's what they did.
Okay, thank you. Messages, Planning Department. Oh,
I know. I've been up here so much tonight and last night too. We do have business scheduled for your, I'll be really brief. We do have business for your next meeting. That's February the 12th. We only have one hearing item scheduled and it should be relatively short-ish. I would really like to do our Planning 101 training with you after that, if you all are up for that.
We're good.
It takes about an hour or so.
Okay.
So it won't be 8:46 to be sure, but we will be about an hour, and we'll do a study session. We'll just do it right here in this room. I think this is a good place to present. So we'll do that. I did not take the time to talk about planning for the City Council and Planning Commission joint study session. I will do that also at the next meeting. I thought about it, and then I thought, wow, mountaintop, I don't think so. And then, of course, we do have business for February 26th. And I think that that's all that I have for you, unless you have questions for me.
Okay, not yet?
No?
Messages and papers from the...
I think Mr. Besco had
Oh,
something
did
for
you
me.
have one?
I thought I saw an email or something that the study session was canceled, but you're saying we do have business for the study session?
No.
Oh.
It's canceled. 26th is canceled.
Yeah, the 26th Planning Commission is canceled.
February.
You mean the study?
February 26th.
I'm sorry. Holy moly. I don't even know what day it is. It's the 22nd. Next Monday's study session is canceled. That's the
Thank you.
26th.
Okay.
That 26th.
Right.
February 26th is your regular Thursday meeting.
Yeah.
That's okay. Last week I got March and February dates all mixed up in my head.
All right. So we understand that somebody in this room is...
Oh, no.
Oh, yes. So congratulations to you for sticking out 20 years of service to the city of Medford. Tomorrow. Yes.
Thank you.
yes.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And we took a vote and decided you're not retiring.
Oh.
So-
Yeah, uh-huh.
Yeah, indentured service. Yeah.
132. So it
Or
has...
a 2-year training period for whoever is your replacement.
I'm going to transition from working to mentoring. I think that's a good thing to do, get some depth. So thank you. I really appreciate that. And it's been quite a ride. I have been serving this body for 19 and a half years, which I don't know if you all remember Jim Mays. You've seen him as an agent from time to time. He staffed it for 10, and I thought he was crazy. So, so here we are. But anyways, thank you for the acknowledgement. I appreciate it.
Well, you're right. And sometime you'll, I met with Kelly on another matter the other day, and she shared with me some of her first reflections on this. So sometime I hope you get to hear what the horror stories were when she started.
18 items on my first agenda. Went till 12:30. That was amazing.
Yeah. All right. Luckily, we don't have that problem these days. Okay. Remarks from city attorney?
Nothing further.
Okay, thank you. Propositions or remarks from other commission members? Yes, sir.
I think for the, obviously with this being on our agenda in February, this item that we continued, I think legal's solo remarks at the very end, if that could be done in the beginning, or maybe staff, just so they can get the context. Plus, I don't want them to clear, I don't want you to clear the room. So.
Yeah, I'm trying not to take it personally when I'm like, it's my turn, and everyone split like the Red Sea.
Yeah. Yeah, well,
Just a
nothing's
suggestion.
happening, so, all right, well, thank you. I think that's probably good advice. So you can book you in for the 26th?
Yeah, no place I'd rather be.
Really? Okay. All right, with that, we've had too much fun tonight, so we're adjourned.